the April 27th, 2026 East Windsor Township Planning Board Statement of Adequate Notice.
Pursuant to the
Can't
sunshine.
hear you.
Can you hear me?
No, not well.
You have to speak into the mic.
Yes, I'm good. Yes. Thank you. Pursuant to the Sunshine Law, a notice of this meeting's date, time, place, and agenda was sent on April 24, 26 to the Trenton Times, filed in the Office of Municipal Clerk, and posted in the East Windsor Municipal Building and the Township website. All requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act have been satisfied.
Roll call, please.
Simon Berman,
Yes.
Kelly Klein, David Monahan,
Here.
Walter Schmidlin,
Present.
Michael Trevisono,
Present.
Gary Wroblewski,
Here.
John Zoller,
Here.
Mayor Jenny Smirnov.
Present.
Any reports, correspondence, or announcements? None. Okay. If anybody is here to speak on a topic other than the main topic tonight or any topic tonight, you can speak now, but I see no one, so we'll pass that
Excuse
on.
me, sir.
You'll have, yes. This has to be on something not on tonight's agenda.
So, my name is Charlie Prattville, Food and Water Watch.
I can't hear you.
Good evening. For Charlie Prattville, I'm the Central Jersey organizer of Food and Water Watch. I did present your attorney with a letter with a procedural objection to moving forward on the QTS application. I just wanted to be able to make that procedural objection before you open up the hearing, if that's okay.
It's okay.
Okay. So,
Yeah, Mr. Cradaville, I think I spoke to you not more than 5 minutes ago. You handed me the letter at about 4:55, and I explained to you that you, by the way, the public forum is only for matters that are not on the agenda this evening. So unless you want to talk about a matter that's not on the agenda, that's fine. And I did explain to you that during the public portion, you certainly could raise any objection you want, just like any other member of the public. Okay?
right, my understanding is this is the public portion, and the chair doesn't allow me to proceed with the objection, so
It has to do with this case. You'll reserve it for the public portion when we get to this application.
I would like to appeal to the chair for the decision on whether or not I can make my objection before the hearing.
What is the basis?
Mr. Chairman,
Notice, deficient notice.
Yeah, before you answer that, I'm fully prepared to address that during the public portion of the hearing.
All right, we'll get to it later.
Okay.
Can I speak? Can I speak? Is this a non-QTS section for the public to speak? It is? May
Yeah,
I
non-QTS.
speak? Non-QTS.
State your name and you can stay back in your seat.
I'm sorry?
You can stay back in your where you
I want
were.
them to hear me.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My name is Linda Caffrey. I live at 61 Mile Road in East Windsor. I object to this meeting being held at this time of day when so few residents attend. From residents, or they don't want to hear from residents. And the way it's scheduled, it feels like you don't want to hear from us.
Ma'am,
And
not to interrupt you, but again, you stated that you were going to ask a question not relating to this
I
application.
wasn't.
So I guess you don't want to hear from us, brother? That is
Let me just finish, folks.
Say something you want.
The public forum is to talk about anything else other than the nature of the QTS application. The nature of
I heard you. My next statement was, where is the printed agenda that should be at the front of every meeting that residents walk into? And yet you don't do. That's what I object to. So it's not a question. Oh, yes, it is a question. Where are they? They were not printed. And somebody on this in this group of people made the decision not to have the agendas out. If I go to a meeting in Cranberry, the agenda is there. West Windsor, the agenda is as soon as you walk in the door. These are small things that East Windsor residents deserve, and this board doesn't do it.
Answer?
Okay, we will move on. First application, which will only take a
Can't
minute.
hear you.
We can't
No, I have a
hear
question.
Use the microphone.
I have a question that's non-related to the public forum. In East Windsor, I see a lot of new construction going up and all that other stuff. Do any of those new constructions have any kind of like local hire clauses where the residents of East Windsor go to work?
Please take this up with the council. This is not the appropriate place to bring that
All
up.
right,
Sure it is.
it's a planning board. I'm here, I'm
Excuse me,
here, I'm asking a
sir,
question.
the planning board deals with, specifically with issues of permitted uses in the municipality pursuant to the municipal land use law. The planning board does not get involved in union issues.
It's not a union.
No, but it doesn't get involved in employment issues. That's strictly between the employer and the employees, and certainly would be a council issue.
All right, so then, the council meeting, perfect, thank you.
Okay, we must move on because we want to get this done tonight if we can. The next application is for carrying purposes only. It's Ideal Auto. That will be carried until when? Do we have a date?
Can't hear you.
Okay, Ideal Auto will be carried until May 4th. The next item is QTS Investment Properties, Princeton.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, board professionals. Again, Jeffrey Chang, law firm of Fox Rothschild from Princeton office. Happy to be representing QTS again this evening. Just as a refresher, QTS is an existing data center operator from blocks 6.01, 8, 9, 10.03, 10.04, and 51 in block 63 in East Windsor on 571. As you all know, we were here on March 9th. We completed our direct testimony of Ryan Wayman, Matthew Kunzman, Paul Going, Robert LaCosta, Eric Scott, Joe Maresca, and Tom Stearns. We have the team back this evening to answer all the questions, which were voluminous at the end of the last meeting. And we also have another expert, two experts, Matthew DeCourcy from Charles River Associates, who discussed utility rates increases. That was one of the questions, or a number of questions that the public had at the hearing. And also Amy Jones, who is the project manager at Dubois Associates, who can answer any questions regarding DEP permitting. Again, we have all our DEP permits. We're in good standing, but just wanted to have her here, so there would not be any questions or issues from the public or the board to say that, you know, if she wasn't here, we're not done. So I want to make sure she's here. I don't plan to call on her directly this evening. What I will say is, I just want to, I guess, recap, instead of doing a summation at the end of this hearing, that our goal here this evening is to answer every single question that was brought up at the last meeting and also this meeting, to address all the concerns to the best of our ability. I think there's been, as I said before, some misinformation, some falsehoods regarding this data center compared to what you hear in the news about other data centers. As this board knows, the municipal land use law focuses on the merits of this application alone. This facility that we're proposing by itself. Cannot be poisoned by any other circumstances of other data centers that are in existence now or are going to be in existence in New Jersey or nationwide. I just want to put that at the outset so that we have a fair hearing. And I know that you guys will continue to give us a fair hearing, and I appreciate that. Just a couple things that we'll discuss later with the experts is that we're not doing any substantive construction. There's no pilots, no tax incentives. QTS does not take those. We're paying for all the utility upgrades. All the substation upgrades are on our own dime, and we're not sharing the substation power with anyone else. Again, that'll get into the operational data in terms of
how infrequent we've had to use generators, how infrequent we've had power outages, and the discussion I'm sure we will have about this facility affecting the grid. We will show that we are not negatively impacting the grid. We haven't in the past, and we will not we will not affect the grid in a negative manner moving forward. Again, we've been in operation for a number of years. We've never had any violations, no complaints regarding noise, vibrations, anything of the sort. So again, these are all public records, certainly look it up. We've been a great neighbor in East Windsor. We've operated for many years, and we actually did an expansion a couple years ago where I believe there was only 5 people here or 6 people that were interested. Again, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and I appreciate this process. So thank you for being here. What I also will again emphasize, the data center is permitted in the zone. Data centers, warehousing, things of that nature are allowed in this zone. That's why we are here already as a data center, and we're expanding before this planning board. That's why this board has jurisdiction to hear this matter. I'm sure there's this little query against the variances and waivers, but they're relatively minor in nature. A lot of it has to do with, regarding one of the variances regarding parking is we don't have enough parking because we're trying to not have too much impervious coverage. Unnecessary asphalt. We're doing bank parking. So we do trigger the variance, but because of proactive environmental reasons, we're having that in place. So again, we've discussed it, we'll discuss it again this evening. Again, we're 1,000+ feet away from any residence. The property line, the property height in terms of, we've shown the photos. I don't believe anyone has any objections yet. I'm sure we will have a discussion further, but we've shown renderings to show that the tree cover around us covers the outline of the building. So it's minimally invasive, if it's invasive by any definition. Further, like I said, vibration noise studies, and again, we'll discuss about vibrations. We did a little more study based on the last meeting. We are in full compliance with DEP and East Windsor local ordinances. We do not violate decibels, we do not violate any of those regulations. We've been, as I said, we had loop cooling technology. We're not doing a backward cooling, we're not drawing millions of gallons of water. It's a bit of a misnomer, it's not part of this application. We will go through the details again as part of this discussion. And again, as it's not germane per se to a planning board, but I think the public would, they have the right to know what's the benefit. We're happy to share the financial discussion. We provide millions of dollars in tax revenue, inspection fees, bonding, all these other ancillary fees that we pay for our past construction, and we're so fortunate to get approved to get additional revenue to the township. So there are tangible benefits. I just want to make sure that's clear on the record. That is just my groundwork, framework I wanted to have before we got into some details. Again, I have my team ready to be sworn in, and I defer to you and the board attorney on how you want us to swear the professionals in.
Well, they've been previously sworn in.
Other than one.
If you have new witnesses, we'll swear them in as they testify.
All right, perfect. So let's move. So the one thing I will ask, and as an accommodation of the board, we had Tom Stearns, last time the planner, wrap up his testimony. I don't believe that there was any additional questions from the board or board professionals, but I will defer to everyone here, or the public. He has another hearing this evening. He's happy to stay, but if there are no planning questions for him, I'd like to have him excused, if possible. If not, I understand as well.
Could you outline what he spoke about, or just bring it up for a minute, and then we'll see if there are any questions for him, and then you can go.
This microphone, this was better.
Sure, absolutely.
We're going to hand out an exhibit. We're going to hand out an exhibit that outlines all the variances and waivers that he outlined last time with a brief justification. It's a one-page handout, so I'll just hand it out to the board. What number is it? Yeah, which exhibit number? Okay. Okay, I know the number to stop. Yeah, I think we, let's see what number we landed last time. It was 1, 2.
I have A6, I think is the last one.
All right, so let's say A7, list of variances and waivers?
Well, let me just look at my notes. Give me a moment.
No, I think it's just. Are there any questions for those? Yeah.
All right, so we have it's actually A7 for the last one, so you can mark that one as A. 8 with today's date.
Okay, you can hear me? Yes. So
So, Mr. Stern, you're still under oath, but I just wanted to open you up to the board. You did prepare this exhibit with outlining kind of condensed version of your whole testimony from the last hearing. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Are there any, I don't know if you need to go through it. I'll defer to the board if you want Mr. Stern to go through this, or you guys could read it. It's up to you.
Just give us a few moments to read that. Yeah, it's just a summary of the 4 C2 variances and the 9 design waivers. And I testified about those the last time I was here.
Can you please speak up? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Hardly, but we couldn't hear the question.
Let me make a suggestion. If you're having difficulty hearing, you may want to move closer to the front. There's a number of...
He's enunciating. Talk. Enunciate.
Turn up the volume.
All right, I'm going to caution everybody to speak. Can you hear me now, everyone? Yes. I'm going to advise anyone who testifies to speak as loud as I am right now, so there'll be no excuse for anybody not to hear anything.
With the mic in your mouth. With the mic near their
So,
mouth.
Mr. Stearns, you're testifying. Speak as loud as you can.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll repeat what I said before. This page is a summary of the 4 C2 variances and the 9 design waivers. And I testified about those previously, and I'm willing to take questions from the board, I guess, and the public. There are any.
Well, Mr. Stearns, I think you should go through them again. You've obviously testified to a new handout, so why don't you state for the record what those variances and waivers are, and certainly if anybody, well, Mr. Chairman, if you want to have Mr. Stearns ask any questions by the board after his testimony, you can certainly do that.
How are we able to see what's being considered?
Okay. All right, so starting with the C2 variances, the first variance from section 20-18.4A, front yards landscape buffer, 175 feet required, 118.5 feet proposed. This was previously approved in phase 2. It meets several purposes of the MLUL, purpose A, G, H, and I. Next variance was from section 20-4.4.C.15 and 20-18.4.A.1. Security fence in the front yard where it's not permitted. It was previously approved in phase 2, essentially for data center security. It's architecturally appropriate with substantial landscape buffering. Again, it meets the purposes of the municipal land use law of A, G, H, and I. Section number 3, section 20-18.4, building height, 55 feet permitted, 55.64 feet proposed. This is a de minimis increase of 7.68 inches. It meets the purposes of the MLUL, purpose A, G, H, and I. The last variance is section 20-4.9, mechanical equipment height. 15 feet above the building is a permitted height. Proposed is 19.67. The equipment screened and the height necessary for thermodynamic cooling and energy efficiency. It does not exceed the limit by 10 feet or 10%, and it meets the purposes of A, G, H, and I. So now, design waivers.
The first one is section 19A-2.3B, parking, 740 spaces required, 182 spaces proposed. Again, data centers require minimal employees and visitors. Again, this reduction allows a net decrease in impervious coverage. Next design waiver, section 19A-2.4A, loading. Again, 19 spaces required, 4 are proposed. Again, this is not a warehouse operation. It's only limited for limited equipment deliveries, maybe 3 to 5 trucks a week. And again, it's consistent with the previously phase 2 approval. Number 3, section 19A-27.b, building-mounted lighting were not permitted. Again, some cutoff fixtures, they're the same cutoff fixtures as pole lights. They're just mounted on the building versus on poles. Again, this minimizes wetland disturbance, and this was a similar variance that we got previously on phase 2. And it's only primarily on the west side of the building and for the generator yard. Section number 4, section 19A-2.5, overhead wires from 1 mile road to the electrical substation where underground is required. Again, the reason for this is it minimizes wetland disturbance. Number 5, section 20-10.3.h. Again, HDP stormwater pipe or RC3 class 3 required. Again, this meets the best practices and it's cost effective. Number 6, section 22-27.9.b. Perimeter trees were 54 are required, proposed at 3-inch caliber instead of 4-inch. Size difference minimal in context of the property and necessary due to the building envelope constraints. Number 7, section 22-27.5.a.1. Constructed wetland shape, rectilinear shape is proposed. It meets the NJDEP best management practices. It's the basin behind the building. It's not publicly visible. Creatively blends with the site design. Number 8, section 22-27.5.b.2. Constructed wetlands reforestation, shrub grass plantings instead of trees per the best management practices 10.4 for constructed wetlands. It's not appropriate for trees. Number 9, this is per New Jersey Administrative Code 7:8-5.3. This was a waiver for constructed wetlands for water quality. And that's it on the list.
Does anybody on the board have any? So, is that working?
No.
Yeah, we'd like to ask our professionals, our planner, engineer, and landscape architect, with respect to the list that was just reviewed. Some of these are obvious in the sense of not having more truck bays or more impervious surface, but if you could comment on any of the list that was just reviewed, any comments you might have, and any concerns that you might have or further questions.
Mr. Chairman, can everybody hear me? Edward Snickets with Burgess Associates, professional planner. We did ask a series of questions in the last meeting, which I believe there were some responses to. One of them was the actual list of variances and waivers, so that the board had that clearly before them. I would concur that these are the waivers and variances that I've been recording throughout the proceedings. The variance is associated with building height, as was identified. It's for the additional 0.64 or 7.68 inches. That's actually the principal building height, whereas the overall mechanical equipment is permitted to be 15 feet above that, or a total of 70 feet. They're proposing 76.31 feet. One thing I would ask the applicant's planner, have you looked at the visual impact and the components associated with the building in order to verify that this is the minimum height or the maximum height that they would need in order for that AC equipment to be, and cooling equipment to be installed on top of the roof?
Yeah, there's going to be a screen, a perimeter screen fence around the mechanical equipment, so it's not going to be seen.
And you've also looked at any cross-sections relative to their impacts to adjacent?
Yes, I have. There was cross-sections in the architectural plans.
And those cross-sections illustrate what, for purposes of the benefit of the variance? What does that indicate? Okay, sure.
They indicate that you're not going to see the mechanical equipment.
It's over 1,000 feet away from adjacent residential property?
Yeah, depending on 700 to 1,000 feet.
In addition to that, the applicant is asking for relief for the perimeter trees and wetland type of construction. I'll leave that to the other professionals to talk about the purposes of that being provided under a design waiver instead of a variance condition. If you can just explain the difference between a waiver and a variance for the members of the public.
Well, a variance is usually a variance from a section that's in the ordinance, that's in the zoning ordinance. If there's a section of the land use regulations that are not in the zoning ordinance, and there's a deviation from it, then it becomes a design waiver. So it's generally seen as sort of a lesser threshold.
Thank you. I just wanted that to be underlined for the board. With that, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, that's all the questions that I had from the new information that's been provided me tonight. I will hand it off to the other professionals to see.
Dan, do you have any comments on the landscaping aspect?
Yes, Dan Dobrovolsky, the landscape architect for the board. There was three items. One was the design waiver regarding the tree size. Their proposed trees of 3-inch caliber instead of the ordinance required 4-inch caliber for a certain number of trees. I believe at the last hearing they said they would try to comply with that.
I think you're right, Dan.
And so as a condition, if they would comply to the extent practical, unless there's some technical reason why they can't do that, then that would eliminate that waiver.
Is that correct?
Yes.
The next one was the constructive wetlands reforestation, as it's called out, number 8, for a design waiver on their list. What they're saying is that under the more recent NJDEP guidelines, the stormwater management basin, which will be internal to the site, it will not be visible from the exterior of the site, will be designed to meet NJDEP criteria for water quality, which is contrary to township ordinance requirements, which we would require that they landscape the interior of the basin with trees to kind of make it look like a wetland, whereas NJDEP suggests using grasses and shrubs, more designed to help remove pollutants. So that's, one, you won't see that, and two, it's basically both of them are environmentally positive aspects, it's just a different way of doing it. And I have no objection, I would offer no objection based upon the fact that one, you can't see it, and two, it still achieves the purpose. And then the last one was just the variance for the front yard landscape buffer. As indicated, that buffer actually exists from previous. And in fact, with this application, I think they're augmenting the buffer even further along 571 to better enhance the buffering of at the front yard. And I believe at the last meeting, they also agreed to increase the size of the evergreen trees to meet the code requirement. It's, the exact numbers are, hold on. They will increase, I believe they're proposing that 6 to 7, they're required to be 8 foot tall at the time of installation, and they agreed to do that in the last meeting. So there would be no waiver required, and I think that buffer will be satisfactory based upon the issues.
Okay, Mark, do you have any comments?
Thank you. Mark Rasnowitz, Township Engineer. With regard to the waivers for parking and loading spaces, it's obvious that that reduces the impervious coverage, thus reducing the stormwater requirements. So that's an advantage. With regard to overhead wires, in lieu of underground, it does, if they were to do underground wiring, it would disturb wetlands. So that's a waiver to provide overhead instead of underground. With regard to the stormwater pipe, again, they do meet NJDEP best management practices with regard to the stormwater pipe. However, it is a waiver from the township ordinance. And I believe we touched upon the wetlands, a constructed wetland for water quality, though it is a waiver. They are meeting the best management practices, and they would need their NJDEP permit, which would cover that as well.
Are there any questions from the board? Okay. Are there any questions, since this witness has to leave soon, any questions from the public for this witness? Yes. Give your name and where you live, please.
Linda Caffrey, 61 Mile Road in East Windsor. I had heard at another meeting I was at that there was a waiver or a variance for the size of the trucks permitted leaving or delivering things to the site, that they were going to be increased to go, and they would go down 1 Mile Road to get on the Heightstown bypass. Is that a false rumor? I hope.
That's not the case.
I'm sorry?
That's not the case. We did not propose that.
Okay, and so it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
This existing weight limits for trucks on those roads, they're going to stay put, right?
Yeah, we're complying with whatever weight limits are on the county road.
Okay.
We never proposed that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Again, remember, just questions for, this is the planners, so questions for the planners specifically regarding the variances.
Yeah. Yeah, just speaking up. Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Carl Delaboli. I live at 12 Pennington Road, East Windsor, New Jersey. The question I have is, I heard twice that there's going to be overhead wires to the building. I guess I'm concerned. Do you generate your own electricity, or are you going to be on the electricity grid for everybody?
No, it's the
Can't hear you.
They couldn't hear the question.
Repeat the question. Well,
Yeah, his question was, why do you need overhead wires coming in to the substation? Is that?
Yeah, and don't you generate your own electricity?
And don't we generate our own electricity? We don't generate our own electricity. The local utility company provides it, and the overhead power lines, they're come in off of 1 Mile Road. They're providing the overhead feed from the electrical grid, which is out in the public roads. It's coming in to service the substation.
Was my understanding that a data center...
You talking about Mike?
Speak up. Speak up.
Right.
Microphone.
Can you hear me? The question is that I thought it was legally responsible for data centers to supply their own electricity, and that's what I heard when we were at the Twin Rivers meeting, where they proposed to have a data center along that part of Stretch, that they generated their own electricity. It seems to me that this is going to cause a great deal of concern to the people that live in the area about the electricity costs going way up.
So again, we're hearing my direct testimony today that that's actually inaccurate. It's misinformation. We will not be increasing your cost for utilities. And we have an expert coming this evening for that. But also, I can't comment about Twin Rivers. That's not his application. Like I said from the beginning, we're only focused on this application, what was testified on March 9th, and what's happening right now. I can't comment about those representations. I just don't know the answer to that question.
I understand that, but a data center uses a tremendous amount of...
So this, Counselor, that was a statement and not a question for the planner, if I may ask.
Let me clarify again, because you're going to have a public portion where you...
Sir.
Let me just go, all right? By the way, Larry Sachs, Board Attorney, all right? The purpose of questioning now is to question this gentleman who's a professional planner. So he just gave testimony tonight, he gave testimony at the last hearing regarding the justification for the variances and waivers. So if you have a specific question regarding that, you can ask it now. If you want to make a statement, if you want to make a statement about anything regarding this project, you'll be able to do that at a later
I'm not going
point.
to make a statement. I'm just trying to find an answer to...
Sir, you'll wait. There will be expert testimony later this evening.
Yeah, there is going to be another...
We really have
3
to
hours
keep...
before they get to say anything?
Okay, fine, as long as that's
Yes.
addressed.
Yes, thank you. Again, if you've got a specific question for the planner, okay.
Can you hear me if I just talk? Yeah. All right. Hayden Klein, Woodland Drive. So I just hear a lot of greenwashing language. I just hear that it's all planning is going into hiding this building. It is into hiding it with the wetlands, hiding it with trees, hiding it with shrubs, trying to protect the wetlands. But the reason we're all here is because you're trying to take the water from this community. So what is the actual intention? What is your actual, like, with
This
your
is
care for the
not-
earth, what is the plan for taking care of the earth? Because I hear like a half of you talking about, you know, minimizing wetland disturbance,
And
and it's just,
this is not a question for this witness. This can come up later.
but it's about the planning, and I'm
We've
just
got to
here talking
maintain
about
order
trees
here,
and shrubs,
please.
so what's the point? What's the
Please.
point of talking about
Mr.
that?
Chairman, if I can make a comment. Mr. Chen, I would strongly suggest that you have Mr. Stern stay here for the hearing, all right? And then when the public portion arises, anybody can ask any question or make any statement they want, all right? Because we need to have some order to this. So, all right? That's what we're going to do. So you have another witness now? What I'm going to do is I'm going to let the public, because I think I already discussed this with the chairman, we're going to let Mr. Chang have a few more minutes to present his direct testimony, and then the public portion will be open, and you can say whatever you want, you can question whoever you want, and it will be a much smoother process.
Councilor Sachs, if I suspect we're not finishing this evening. If Mr. Stearns has another matter that he must attend to, if I say we'll have him back for the next meeting, would that be acceptable?
I would suggest that you bring your next witness up. Let's see how long that takes, and let's see how long the public's going to take. But I'm not going to deprive the public of an opportunity to ask questions of the plan.
So I'm ready for the next witness, Matt DeCourcy from Charles River Associates, who will discuss about the rates.
Let me swear you in, sir. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, professional affiliation for the record.
Matthew DeCourcy, ABC, Moody, RCEY. I'm a vice president of Charles River Associates.
Mr. Chang, if you can qualify him or indicate the nature of what his testimony will be about.
Mr. Corsi, could you just share with the board your educational background, your work history, and how you're involved in analyzing the utility rates, both in Jersey and also nationwide?
Yeah, I've spent about 20 years in the utility industry, most of it focused on utility rates, utility finance, utility rate making, utility investments. As a consultant, I've advised companies and boards like this, investors and other parties on how the mechanics of utility investment and cost recovery works, how rates are made. For several years, I was the vice president of rates and regulation at a utility, overseeing rate making for 20-something utilities all over North America. I've been recognized as an expert for several state regulators, federal energy regulator. I've participated in disputes. I see you nodding, so that's sufficient.
That is sufficient.
Is that better? Yeah.
Okay. So you're an expert in rates, utilities, and energy industry. What is it that you're here to discuss tonight and educate the board and the public?
So I understand that during recent discussions, questions have been raised about what effects data centers have had on utility rates and what effects they might have in the future. This is something in which I'm an expert. It's also something that me and my team have recently published some research on. So I was going to share some of that research, some of those findings about what has been the impact of data centers on utility rates, based on some publications we've put out into this space recently. And then talk about what the forward look looks like, what we can expect would happen if a data center were added to the community here in terms of electricity rates for the customers who are already in place.
So I know there's some slides that will mark collectively as A9. They're what would you describe it? The Charles River Associates slides.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess it's a PowerPoint of Charles River, prepared by Charles River Associates, data center rate impacts. We'll mark it as A9 with today's date. I would probably also suggest you turn those boards to the public because we all have a copy of it. So. Yeah.
Yeah, they're the same.
Why are they not on the screen? You have a video camera, you have a pull down. Why is none of this being put so that people can see?
Are you presenting
what
for your
you're talking
elementary school?
about?
Because the data's high school presentation?
Could we please have order? Please, let's have order. We cannot move forward if you're going to speak out.
Why would we move forward? This is pointless. No one can see it.
Can you move one
Micro characters. You have a projector behind the board. Come on, man. Some middle school presentation? I'm saying this slide. Where's the PowerPoint? You said there wasn't. It's got a computer.
Folks, listen. We have to have a sense of decorum here. All right. Well, maybe you don't agree that we need to have a sense of decorum, but we do. All right. That's how public meetings occur, and that's how public meetings have occurred for 250 years, and they continue for the next 250 years. So let's have some courtesy, folks. Let's have some courtesy. All right. Yelling out is not going to change anything. All right. So what I will tell you is you will certainly have an opportunity to go up to these boards when we take a break after this testimony, and you can certainly ask any questions of this expert when we get to the public portion. All right, Mr. Chang, why don't you proceed forward?
Sure, thank you. So, Mr. Corsi, can you just walk us through the narrative about what you found about data center impacts on electric rates?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'm going to walk through this quickly. Please do interrupt if there are questions on certain things to dive into. I think the interest is probably in proceeding quickly through this part. We started with this notion that there were concerns that utility rates writ large were increasing across the country, and that this was pressurizing affordability. It was putting a lot of pressure on homeowners, families, their ability to pay for their electric service. So we set out to undertake a diagnostic study. What's happening, where's it happening, how much is happening, and with the particular intent of also addressing the question of data centers. This is our starting point, this slide shown here. It shows that there's been a pickup in utility prices in the last 5 years. These are data reported by the EIA, the Energy Information Administration, part of the U.S. government. And it shows that depending on how you sort of measure and start and end your points, that you're talking about 30–40% increase in the average U.S. retail rate over this 5-year period at the right side of this, following a long period of data stability. This is something that's worth investigating, so we dug into it. The next thing that we did using that information was we delved into what happened state by state, place by place, and that's on that next slide you see here, slide number 2. Here we start to get different answers of what's going on with rates over the last 5 years. These bar charts, they tell you how much the rates have gone up in terms of cents per kilowatt hour and in terms of percentages over that same 5-year period. But what we see is that there's no one story that captures it. There's many, many stories that captures it. If you look at the total change in rates, it ranges from an increase in California, the rates went up by 12 cents per kilowatt hour. That's huge. It's a massive rate. At the other end of the spectrum, Iowa's rates went up by 1.2 cents per kilowatt hour. That's less than inflation. New Jersey falls on the high side. Regardless of how we measure, your increases were among the most and among the largest observed in the country. And we know there are reasons for that, but the important takeaway, I think, on this is that those national average numbers don't really tell you much about what's happening in any one particular place. And that the local factors are going to be the drivers of what's happening here. Let's look at the next one. Here, we've taken those same data. This is the same change in prices, and we put it on this heat map. The idea is that this shows us geographically what's happening, and what it shows us is that something is happening geographically. There is something happening in California that is very, very California specific. Like I said earlier, California has the biggest increase in utility rates over this period. You can see it's the darkest blue on the map. It's also very much different from Nevada, Arizona, the states next to it, right? Something California specific is happening. In the Northeast, in New Jersey, there's a different story. Something is happening to make the rates go up there more than other places, but it's some kind of regional factor. You see New Jersey looks a lot like New York, looks a lot like Massachusetts, looks a lot like Maine. Something is influencing those states in a similar way. It seems to be a different dynamic than what's going on in California. Now, we know why that is because we have the ability to look into the financial filings of the utility companies that set these rates. So let's flip to the next slide, next handout, the next page. What we did was we looked into the way that the utilities in these jurisdictions spend money because they're regulated utilities, so what they spend on is what the rates do. And we looked at what categories of spending changed over this period so that we could do cause and effect of what was happening. California was quite easy. They have wildfires now. They did 5 years ago. And so they have massive price increases because of the wildfire spending. The impact is staggering on their financials, it's staggering on their bills. In the Northeast, there's a consistent story that utility costs have gone up because of changes in wholesale electric markets. Utilities in the Northeast, including in New Jersey, generally don't own their own generation. They purchase electricity from wholesale markets, from the grid, on behalf of their customers. And then they charge the customers the cost of the purchases they make. If you look
Can you be
at,
louder, please?
I think so. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. If you look at the bar chart here, what it shows us is that for a Northeast utility that we picked, whose identity we withheld, but which looks like the other Northeast utilities, it had a pretty significant increase in its cost to serve its customers. In 2019, it cost 18.5 cents for it to serve its customers. In 2024, that was up to 22.6 cents. That's a big jump during that period. The biggest factor that influenced that is this 2.6 cent pickup in purchase power right there in the middle. Most of the increase is from the cost of the electricity that they're out there buying from the grid. It's something that flows through here, and it's something that we can see in the other utility companies because they have to file these data in annual reports, and we built a giant database of financial information to be able to do this. This also aligns with what we see as trends. We know wholesale market prices went up. We know there was a Russian invasion of Ukraine. We know COVID came and went. We know there are impacts that we can tie to wholesale markets that we can trace back to this. And that this is impacting parts of the country, the Northeast, because prices tend to be volatile there unto themselves because it's in the supply chain. And it flows through to customer rates here more than elsewhere because the utilities here don't own their generation. Elsewhere, where they own their generation fleet, there's a buffer against this to some extent. They have the revenue side and the cost side of it in a way that these utilities don't, so there's direct exposure. We think unto itself that is pretty dispositive of why rates have gone up, where the rates have gone up. Most of the rest of the country, rates have actually been pretty stable. If you go back and you look at the map, like there's not a lot of dark blue outside of the Northeast and California. So we think this explains the dynamic. Unto itself, it rules out the data centers as being a big contributor to this. But also, the data centers are not being developed where the prices are going up, or at least they haven't been. And most of the data centers aren't online yet. And so it just doesn't fit our fact pattern that data centers that are being developed all over the country could be influencing prices only in certain places but not others, and at the time that they haven't even been brought online yet, and most of the data centers haven't yet been brought online at all. So, I mean, before I move forward to these sort of forward-looking piece, I think, that this is pretty dispositive to the question of where data centers have been active. Have they influenced prices? We think no.
You could go, like, I guess, moving forward, post 2026, do you have any commentary on what you anticipate will happen with rates, how data centers may actually have a downward pressure onto costs, and your evidence for that?
I do. We think that utilities that bring data centers onto the grid will reduce the cost for the customers that are already there. Skepticism I hear behind me, I presume, comes from a straightforward understanding of supply and demand, which says more demand, higher price. In some circumstances, in some contexts, that's true, but it's important to understand how utilities make rates and how utilities make rates for data centers. What will happen if a data center is built here is that the rates it pays for its electricity service will be based on the cost of investments made on its behalf. So the utility will go and build substations and it will build new infrastructure to serve that data center. Those are investments that have to be recovered in costs. Then the data center will use the grid along with every other customer that's on the grid, and that will come with cost as well. The rates are made in a way that's become quite consistent across the country, where we can make rates and charge data centers rates that require them to pay for those upfront investments, either in the rates or in direct capital contributions as a condition of coming onto the grid. If they do that, those investments can't be borne by other customers. Then they come onto the grid. They share some of the system. They share some of the costs of operating the system. They take the total system cost and effectively spread it over a larger pool, a larger group of customers, so that the amount each customer pays goes down a little bit. Sometimes considerably.
If we're talking, I'm going to pause. If we're trying to testify, can I please not have comments behind me and interrupt us? Is that okay?
Yes, that's fair. So, again, listen, hold your comment to yourself. There'll be an opportunity during the public portion to make a comment. Sir, I see you raising your hand. Hold your thought during the public portion. I'm sorry, what was
Next thing, what's going to happen to your property?
Sir.
Nobody wants to hear it.
Yes,
Sit
you're
down.
absolutely
I have to
right.
go. This is a smoke screen. They have an agenda. You're all selling us out.
Yes.
Mr. Chang, why don't you proceed forward?
Yeah, just proceed. Go ahead.
So when we put up the last slide we have, the last picture we have, I get the skepticism. I do understand it. Really, no one has to believe me because we brought evidence with us. As utilities and regulators and zoning boards and local governments continue to look at these questions, they are reaching the same answer most times they do it. And every time that I'm aware of, a conversation like this has been had, they've determined that customers are going to benefit from bringing these new loads onto the grid. I have a couple instances here where utilities are making binding commitments. Georgia Power is on the record, for example. They've gone to the regulator and they've said, we'd like to make these investments to serve these data centers to bring them on the grid. When we do, we're going to reduce every customer's bill by $100 a year. And the next time we come in for a rate case, we're going to show you how we did that. And if we fail, we'll reconcile it out. We'll financially commit to reduce everybody's bill. PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric in California, not exactly a bastion of industrial development. They determined that for every 1,000 megawatts of large load customers that comes onto the grid, other customers' rates will go down by 1 to 2%. In Michigan, we had a recent finding from the regulator there, the organization entrusted with protecting customers. And they were delighted to approve one of these contracts because they said they could potentially benefit all customers by spreading out the fixed costs of the utilities electric grid. At the same time, another utility in Michigan just said, we're not going to file a rate case. We're not going to ask to increase our costs this year because we don't have to because of the data centers. This is not PR. These are real findings, real results, and real places with real financial ramifications that actually count as evidence. I'm not aware of one of these where a regulator, a judge, a board has said, no, actually, this is going to be not for us. This is going to be worse for us having these data centers. This is going to be bad. Like, this is the trend, and this is the data, and this is what we see everywhere.
There is, I hear, a lot of skepticism. Could you restate, as simply as you possibly can, why rates would be either stable or decline? What I heard was that the revenue generated from increased sale of electricity is greater than the increased cost of the infrastructure to deliver the electricity. Is that correct?
And that is correct. That's one way to put it. That's not exactly what I had in mind, but that is absolutely correct. Yeah.
Say it exactly as you had in mind.
So, again, two categories of spending happen when we added data center. The first is the utility spends on infrastructure. We don't want the existing customers to pay for that infrastructure, so the utilities are charged directly for it. Dime for dime, dollar for dollar, the investments made on their behalf will be recovered from those customers. The other customers are held entirely harmless. Here, in this instance, I understand QTS is making those investments upfront. They're not even sort of having the utility fund it and then recovering the cost of the rates. They're just financing it directly, as a matter of course, as a precondition to their entering the grid. So there, the utilities or the utility customers are held harmless. Where they benefit is now you add a data center to an electrical grid and to a utility system, which has lots and lots of costs for various things, the use of the system as a whole. Think about things like corporate headquarters, trucks, systems, billing systems, like all these things that don't get more expensive when you add a new customer, no matter how large, but that new customer pays its fair share of the total cost. And its fair share is generally measured by how many kilowatt hours it consumes. So you take this bucket of cost and you spread it over a bigger group of customers, and everybody's costs go down. Does that make sense? Do you agree? No?
Another question. In other states, other grids, do data centers pay the same rate as, say, another business? Or do they pay a higher rate? All right, I'll say it again. In other states or other regional grids, do data centers pay more for their electricity than business X, say a warehouse or even a corner store?
Is there a premium for that? Yes, they do. Part of that is because they're paying for all the infrastructure that serves them. Part of that is because they're paying for their stuff and a share of the grid. I'm trying to think if I could come up with a boundary case where a data center used so much energy that its rate was lower than a different utility rate, but the total cost it paid would be much, much greater than any of the other customers. So I think, yes, conclusively, a data center pays more than its cost.
It pays more per kilowatt hour?
No, as a whole. Let's do it both ways. The data center pays for all of the costs that the utility incurs on its behalf in terms of dollars. Right? The utility will incur costs to serve it, and the data center pays all of those, including some of the shared costs. Kilowatt hour, it depends on usage from time to time, and utilities are not at risk for the data center's usage either. So if in some period the data center used lots of energy, and in some period the data center used much, much less energy, these contracts have minimums in them to protect the existing customers from getting less revenue. The utilities at no point send $1 out the door to serve the data centers and then fail to bring $1 back.
Is there a separate contract which a data center signs with a utility?
Yes.
There is. Is that a negotiated contract? Is that in the...
I can fill that one. The question was, is there a separate contract that the data center pays with the utility? And the answer is almost invariably yes. The rate-making mechanisms get a little bit complicated. I'm happy to discuss them, but we need to have bilateral agreements between the data center and the utility so that the utility can recover precisely the costs that it expends on behalf of the data center. We need that level of specificity. So the way it works is that the data center comes to the utility, says, I want to pay service. The utility says, this is how much it will cost to serve you. We'll turn that into rates. They both have to take that to the state regulator, who has to approve it before the data center can come into the system and be a customer. So it's a bilateral agreement that's reviewed and, I can tell you, closely scrutinized by the regulator, especially on these questions of customer protections and any any support from other customer classes. And then it gets approved and it moves forward.
Any questions from our
I have a
professionals?
question.
Wait a minute. Are there anything that our the professionals want to comment on with regard to this? Okay, anything from the board? We'll get to the public.
I would like to ask a question, if I may. You mentioned in your presentation, it seemed to me that there was an incremental cost in your graphs associated with new generation that's been required. You said 2.6 cents as part of the increases that were occurring on your graph. Am I mishearing that? The generation was part of that cost increase in the more recent.
The bar chart.
Bar charts.
Yes, so the 2.6 cents is the cost of energy supply, right? So the utilities in the Northeast don't own generation, and so they have to go out to the market and independent power producers buy it, generate it and sell it to them, and that's
Right, so it's a generation cost. It's not the transmission cost, it's the generation cost.
Yeah, we would typically say energy supply just because it's the cost of the megawatt hours as opposed to the cost of owning the infrastructure, which is different, but I understand what you're saying.
Fine. Has JCP&L let QTS know that the projected demand for this center is not going to require capital expenditure on the generation side?
Yes.
And if it does, will the data center and/or its lessees be responsible? I know there's legislation going through in New Jersey, ratepayer protection plans and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if any of that has currently been incorporated into your lease agreements or as a requirement that you're looking forward to how you're going to address once it potentially becomes law.
I got a question. Can I speak?
You'll be able to ask your question during the public portion.
Specifically about this.
Correct. You'll be able to ask that question during the public portion. Thank you.
So, let me take it first from the perspective of best practices from generality, right? And in the status of the BPU is that they're in the midst of an investigation, the New Jersey BPU, so let's get right through. They're in the midst of an investigation of the impact of data centers. They're looking into these exact same sort of questions that we're asking. They're also evaluating how to do tariffing for the data centers, how to set up a standard tariff that they'll all use. It has been the case of every jurisdiction that has moved forward with data centers that the cost of new generation is borne directly by that new customer. I don't know that any specific conversations have taken place between JCPL, QTS, and anybody else, but the industry norm, and it is now a clear industry norm, is that if new investments are required, whatever they may be, then they're going to be recovered from the customer who caused them to be incurred. And then you had a second part of the question. Okay.
So your conclusion, so we can finish up this portion, is that okay, so your conclusion, your professional conclusion, your professional opinion is that QTS's new data center will not increase rates for consumers. Is that correct?
That is one professional conclusion of mine. The other is QTS's data centers will likely make those rates go down.
Okay. We will open this up. This witness will stay. We're going to have, what, one more witness? Or two. One or two more witnesses. And after that, these witnesses will remain in the room and they will answer all your questions.
Right.
So,
Sir, please, yeah, I think
So I'm sorry.
Put this order in earlier. Sorry. So that based on the comments that you did just make, would it be QTS's intention to bear the cost directly of any infrastructure needs that are required as a part of this data center project?
I believe that is QTS's intention. I believe the senior management can speak to that more firmly than me, but I also know that whether it's their intention or not, they will be compelled to do so.
Well, we could compel it too.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
I'm asking the question, would that be the commitment and intention of QTS?
I apologize, I had to make commitments on behalf of the yes,
Simple question.
Yes, Mayor, we will be bearing the cost.
That would be any future infrastructure needs.
Correct.
And also, if the state legislature imposes new regulations.
I understood my question and answer. Thank you.
Yeah, have another witness, unless there's any other board questions.
Okay. Next witness? Yeah, that's true.
I believe this witness testified at the March 9th hearing. Again, please state your name for the record, and I advise you that you're still on the road.
Robert Costa, I'm the Senior Director with QTS in the development organization.
Mr. LaCosta, I have a number of questions I want you to hit on, but if you do the narrative, that might be the most economical way to handle it. You were here in the last meeting, March 9th. You had a number of questions posed to you from the public. You had an opportunity now to look into it and respond fully. So could you walk us through some of the, in no particular order, financial benefit of township and residents, the Chief of Police Review Report dated April 1, 2026, JCPL substation discussions, electrical usage discussions we've had with them, and also the water usage and closed loop system.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm going to reiterate a few things that you said earlier, but I'm going to be very, very clear about this. QTS is not seeking any public funds. We're not seeking any discounts or any accommodations from the state or the federal government for this or any other project. We fund all of our projects privately through capital that we go to the market and get. We're not asking for a handout from anyone. This holds true for our utility group as well. We are not asking JCP&L to do anything on our behalf that we're not paying for. If there's new generation needed, we bear the cost. If there's transmission lines, we bear the cost. The substation, completely paid for by QTS. Again, we're not asking anyone to help us with our business at all. We stand alone. I can't speak for some other developers who made deals contrary. A lot of those deals are what we hear about in social media. For QTS, we pay for everything out of our own pocket. We're not asking for any help from them. We also pay all of our local municipal costs. The project we're about to complete, we paid just under $1.6 million in permit fees and $50,000 in overtime fees to your inspectors. We don't ask anything of this township. We pay our way no matter what. This project will fund approximately $300,000 to the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And in the past 4 years, we've paid approximately $4.4 million in property taxes. That is before the reassessment of our current building that we're completing the addition. We're doing some, speculative math, and we believe the tax revenue from the new building will be roughly $2 million on top of what we pay. We are also planning on funding the East Windsor Transportation Improvement Fund to allow the township to explore and hopefully install sidewalks along 1 Mile Road, reaching up to Dutch Neck Road. During the course of this project, we will have anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 skilled construction jobs on site. Construction will last anywhere from 12 to 18 months. At the conclusion of that, there will be 35 to 40 full-time new positions created to support that facility. That doesn't include future tenant representation that will either hotel or reside in the facility. Our workforce is made up of 30% or greater retired or honorably discharged veterans. We participate in multiple programs that allow veterans to assimilate back into private industry, and a vast majority of our operations teams come from that block. Over the past 2 years that we've been working on this project, just to give you guys a little lighter bit, we had 50 food truck days, local East Windsor businesses. According to our general contractor, we ordered 20,000 bagels, and they believe we ordered about 10,000 sandwiches from local visitors. Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's a lot of food. We did get the report back from the Chief of Police dated April 1st, 2026, and the police chief stated that since we purchased the facility in 2014, there have been an average of 1.5 calls for service per year. QTS does not have a significant impact on township emergency services, police, fire, or EMS. Furthermore, QTS has no impact on the radio or telecommunications system of the police department. Changing topics and talking about the generators and how we utilize them. Question was asked about our fuel storage. Our fuel storage is done in accordance with federal and state regulations. All diesel fuel storage tanks incorporate measures that prevent the release of fuel in the event of a leak. The tanks utilized by QTS are UL listed in accordance with UL 142 and comply with NFPA 30 standards. The tanks are double wall constructed, internally baffled, with an outer wall designed to provide secondary containment capable of holding 110% of the primary tank's maximum capacity. Tanks are also equipped with fuel level monitoring and electric leak detection systems and are inspected in accordance with applicable state requirements. Like I said earlier, we are not asking JCP&L for any assistance with our project. We did ask them to be here as you requested. Their policy is not to speak on behalf of any project before any township or state board, which is why we invited Matt to speak as an independent consultant. The solar fields produce 14 megawatts of power. That power is consumed by QTS in our existing building and will continue to be consumed in that building for the foreseeable future. Can we get this substation image? A little more talking about our backup generators. Since the generators were installed in 2007, prior to QTS purchasing the property, we have a total runtime of 387 hours, or 16.5 days. That includes Superstorm Sandy, which accounted for 40% of those hours. This equates to a 0.002% of the time we've run on generator over the last 19 years. In the past 3 years, we have lost power on the following dates: July 20th, 23, November 3rd, 23, July 30th, 25, December 28th, 2025. These dates represent the number of times we had to rely on our backup power to keep the facility active, and it demonstrates the reliability of the grid that we're attached to in East Windsor. Our backup generation is diesel-powered electrical generators. They are sized specifically for the load, so we don't run larger generators that require more fuel than needed. They are part of our design, and they are, again, only run for exercise monthly during the day or in the event of an emergency.
So this is the cost of, we're looking at, is it A10 substation rendering?
Yeah, let's wait till the board copy of it.
Should we, Mr. Sachs, just note that there was a report while they're handing this out from the chief of police that was in response to questions that were raised at the last meeting.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, there was a report that the board received, I think it was dated April 1st, indicating that there
That
were...
was in response to questions raised at the last meeting.
Yes, and that was correct, Mayor. That was in response to questions raised at the last meeting about any public safety concerns at this particular site. And I believe, Mr. Costa, you testified to that this evening, that you did receive that letter, and that it did not indicate that there were any issues whatsoever.
That's correct.
All right, so we now have A10, which I believe is a rendering of the substation. Is that what you're going to testify to?
Yes. So there were a number of questions around the substation. We were able to incorporate it into our renderings. As you can see, the substation is at the rear of the buildings, and it is almost completely screened by the two buildings. We also included a small rendering of what the substation may look like. As we have not finalized our contract with JCP&L, I can't tell you exactly what equipment will be in there, but this is a standard substation designed to support a load in line with this building. The pad size has already been determined by JCP&L, so the size will not change. It's just a matter of procurement when we are at the point where we conclude our contract with them and they go out to purchase the equipment. Depending on the vendor, it could change exactly what the equipment in that yard looks like, but that will show you what the equipment looks like. None of the transformers, none of the switchgear are fan operated. There's no loud whirling noises coming out of the substation. It is a relatively small substation compared to what they normally do. So what you have is a control building. That control building, holds the energy management control systems, and then you have transformers, and you have disconnects and relays. That's essentially what this substation is. We're going to touch on water. This is a topic that, again, has a lot of misinformation around it. That information is based in two places. It's based on old technology, and it's based on other data center providers in the market that use evaporative cooling. When you have an evaporative cooling system, you are continuously flowing water across a media, and that media is what allows you to cool the temperature of the air. Those systems are not very efficient. They are not very environmentally friendly. QTS does not install them in any of our facilities.
I'm sorry, just so we can mark this, you're referring now to the water-free flow loop system.
Yeah.
That will be marked as A11. I'm sorry, Ms. Costa.
Moreover, at our facilities where we do run evaporative cooling, As those systems come to end of life, we are replacing them with closed loop systems. I can't tell you a day when QTS will be completely on a closed loop system, but our goal is to remove them from our portfolio over the next number of years. We've had a conversation with the MUA. Our water bills have been pretty much static for the last 15 years. There was a blip in how much water we consumed during the construction of our addition, but that blip has since come back down. They do not believe, based on the information we gave them, that the next building will create any additional unforeseen load on the ability to provide water to East Windsor. The way the system works is very similar to your car. Once you fill the system, and you fill it once, you close the system. The system runs that water continuously for years. We have some systems that have been up and running, that have been running for 7 years, but have not been refilled yet. That water runs across an air-cooled chiller. That air-cooled chiller takes that water in the form of a radiator, cools the air temperature, sends it back into the building where it's passed across a large fan, and we get cooler air out of that fan. Again, once the system is charged at the completion of construction, the system does not need to be recharged at any given time. The way the systems are designed, if we do have some sort of failure, it is a zoned system. We are able to close off a specific area of the system and perform maintenance. You might lose a couple hundred gallons, you might lose 1,000 gallons. That's all. You're not going to lose the full system capacity. After the system is filled, yes, we do treat the water. It is treated with a non-molybdenate, non-nitrate, non-phosphorus chemical treatment that acts as a corrosion inhibitor and an antimicrobial. In the event that any of that has to be discharged, it is discharged in compliance with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Standards. But to be honest, the levels in which those chemicals reside in the water is so low, it can be placed into a municipal sewer, and the sewer system would never know that it's there. The chemicals that we use, again, are not the old chemicals that you hear about that are really not good for not only the sewer system equipment, but also the water quality. The last question that was asked about this, somebody touched on, the installation of the system. During installation, we do have to what's called flush and fill the pipes. When the system is built, obviously it's built off-site. It's transported. It may have picked up road debris. It may have picked up construction debris. We do have to clean the system out. We recycle as much of that water as we can. We filter it on site, and any water that is released from that process is treated before it is put down into the sewer system. So, again, in compliance with DEP, we make sure that none of that processed water ever makes its way out of our facility if it is not suitable to do so.
And I have nothing further on direct Commissioner LaCosta. I hope he...
I would like to, could you talked about the closed loop system for water. Could you just verify that is the system that is being proposed in the facility before us tonight?
It is the only system QTS uses nationwide.
Okay. Also, could you please quantify in some manner, you indicated that the water usage was static over the recent years.
Please speak up.
Could you quantify the amount of water that the system uses or would use in this facility if it were to go forward and this was the system to be used?
Yes, Mayor. So I'm going to give you two parts to that answer. As we have not completely designed the cooling system for the building, I can't tell you specifically how much water it will hold. I can tell you on average, it's about the same amount of water as an Olympic swimming pool. It's about 600,000 gallons on a standard building. That is a one-time fill. In this building, it would be done 150,000 gallons at a time with approximately a 1 month lag in between each portion of the building. 150,000 gallons of water is not very much water at all for a water system. Once we are in operation, we use the equivalent water of 3 households per month. That water is for cleaning, for bathroom facilities. As we do have people 24/7, we do have shower facilities for our technicians. It's for domestic drinking water, and it's for humidification.
Are there any questions from our professionals?
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman? Yeah, just a few questions. You had indicated, I believe it was from the police department's report, there are no interferences to the RF factors or due to the electronics within the building to their ability to serve the building for emergency services. Is that something you're currently?
That's a little different answer, but I can give it to you. In New Jersey, when we reach substantial completion, the emergency services will come to our building with their radios, and they will walk the building. If there are dead spots, we are legally required to install a repeater system for them. We've had this happen enough times that we put the system hardware in ahead of time. We don't put the actual computer in, but we run all the pipe and wire and the antennas. So in the event that when we're done with this, they do have a dead spot, it takes us about 4 weeks to come into compliance, and we generally will not get a CO in most jurisdictions until we comply with that.
You look at comply.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. With regard to the fueling of the emergency generators, what sort of practices do you employ regarding the best management of containment of potential spills during the fueling of those tanks? What's your process for that?
So when the trucks arrive, the trucks sit in, they're called pig vats. Pig is the name of the company, it's just what they're called. They are about 4 feet larger than a tractor trailer. Once the truck goes in, the spill gate comes up behind. That will contain any spill from the truck. All of the hoses are double walled. They're double walled when they connect to the tank. All of our tanks have spill prevention. If for any reason there's any malfunction, there's a whistle. It's a very loud and annoying whistle. That notifies the driver to turn off his flame.
Okay. With regard to the substation that's being proposed, that substation won't expand. The area that's shown currently will not expand. It's within the area that JCP&L has agreed to as far as its size.
That's correct.
Thank you. No further questions. Thank you.
So I would like to just note and add to table. So the executive director of the East Windsor Municipal Utilities Authority is here. He heard the testimony. So I would like to have him indicate and offer comments as to whether he has reviewed the plans of QTS. Obviously, he's heard the testimony, and to offer his comments from the point of view of the township's utility regarding the closed loop system and the water usage, both history and any other comments that you can offer.
Swear me in, or?
Yeah, let me do that. Please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
All right, please state your name, spelling your last name, and your position with the municipality.
Okay, my name is Richard Brand. I'm the Executive Director for East Windsor MUA.
My last name's spelled B-R-A-N-D. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, I can start off with talking about the closed loop system. We received their service requirement from QTS and our engineers. It's approximately 900 gallons per day. That's equivalent to what we call 3 EDUs. 1 EDU is the equivalent of a 3-bedroom house. So you're looking at approximately 3 homes their use is going to be per day. So their use is very minimal. I am very familiar with closed loop systems. I like using the analogy of an air conditioning system. When you buy an air conditioning system, if you have to charge your unit with refrigerant, with Freon, that means you have a leak in it. It's the same thing with this closed loop system. It's hermetically sealed. The only way they will be needing make up water is if they have a leak in the system. And obviously, I think Mr. Acosta spoke about that they have zones off where they can isolate it and make the repairs. As far as usage, for those of you who are familiar with the McGraw-Hill, when they operated both campuses, the north and the south campus, used approximately 1 million gallons more per day or per quarter than what QTS is using right now. Based on the South Campus, the last quarterly reading was about 500,000 gallons less than what McGraw-Hill used back the same date, February 17th of 2018. McGraw-Hill used 500,000 gallons more. So we believe that there is going to be absolutely no impact whatsoever to the MUA.
Any questions from the board?
So I just have one other thing. It was referenced, but I do think it's important to just nail down. So there was a report from the chief of police that was referenced earlier. That was prepared because of questions at the last meeting that were asked by residents in attendance. And I do want to just indicate it was referenced, but it indicates that talked about the 1.5 calls for service per year since they took over the site in 2014, and that's for police, EMS, and fire. But then further, which was the question, it says QTS has had no effect on the radio equipment or any other telecommunication systems within the police department. The proposed expansion does not include the installation of any equipment that would interfere with police communications. The police department has experienced no adverse impacts to the physical structure of the police building or police operations as a result of our close proximity to the QTS facility, and therefore offers no objection. The chief of police is here. I would like for him to just indicate that he did submit that report. However,
Chief, let me swear you in as well. Thank you. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, said about.
Yes, I do.
All right. Please state your name and spell your last name, professional affiliation with the municipality.
Jason Hart, Chief of Police, East Windsor Township Police Department, last name H-A-R-T. Yeah, so I wrote that report. We did a kind of review of calls for service. Were minimal. Of those 1.5 calls, there were, maybe burglar alarm here or there, suspicious every once in a while, nothing significant, nothing that took much police service at all. Same with the fire department and EMS, very few calls. In terms of interference, we've experienced no radio interference as a result of QTS being in pretty close proximity to us. The only real thing that would cause that kind of interference with our radios would be something that's called a BDA, bidirectional amplifier, which they're not putting into their system. So that's not going to be a problem, and it hasn't been a problem for us moving forward. I mean, in the past, or moving forward. And then in terms of any other issues with the structure, with the physical police structure, there's been no issues there as well.
I have a few questions. Can you explain how you vet your tenants, what the contractual relationship with them is, whether you have any control over or have the ability to have control over their electrical consumption and over the technology that they use?
I can answer some of that. Yes, we vet our tenants very closely. Credit risk is a major factor. There are a lot of small companies out there that want space at data centers that don't have the credit worthiness that we require. We require our tenants to sign 10, 15, and 20-year leases. There are no early termination clauses in these leases. When you're signed, you're signed. I can't tell you who, but I can tell you that we have said no to some folks that were interested in being in QTS facilities because we didn't feel that they had the proper financial backing. Second part of your question. The way data center works is it's an electrical blocks. So as a tenant, you are buying X number of megawatts to use. So just to use the number of 15 megawatts, if you buy a 15 megawatt block from us, you are entitled to use 15 megawatts. We've allocated out of the whole building, we've allocated 15 megawatts. I don't care if you have guys in there playing Xbox or if they are, running storage or if they're running cloud services. What they do with those megawatts is completely up to them. No different than if this was a condo. If you rent a condo from me, you can do whatever you want in that condo, you can cook whatever you want. It's your space to do what you want. They cannot exceed that power requirement of it. So if it's and this isn't, but if it's a 60 megawatt building for easy math, and you have 4 15 megawatt data halls, and I lease skip 15 megawatts, that's the power that you have to work with. What you do with it is completely up to your business model. It may be internal processing for systems, it may be cloud servicing. We don't control that portion.
If they exceeded, first of all, the first question is, how many megawatts would you expect this project to consume, or to use from the substation?
I can't comment on that right now because we have not finalized the design.
There is been a lot of technological advances in the past couple of years. There's a slow evolution from electronic to photonic, which uses far less power than current chips use. My understanding, just based on our capitalistic system, is that the motivation of a tenant would be to deliver the same amount of work with less power. Would you agree with that?
What they're going to do is they're going to deliver more work. They're buying that allocation of megawatts. So what we're seeing, what you're talking about is years away. We're not there. What we're seeing is the chip manufacturers are starting to increase the high threshold of what the chips can run at, so they'll require less cooling. When they do that, they can create more density.
Is it reasonable then that there would not be a requirement for more cooling in the future?
But that's the holy grail question. I don't know. There are some of the smartest people on this planet that are trying to figure out how to do more compute with less power and generate less heat. That's That's so far over my head.
But this facility will have a cap on the amount of power that it can provide, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, I mean, suppose you're 70 or 80 megawatts, somebody comes, one of your tenants comes along and they say, I need to use 80% of that. You can't provide that. That would be, they'd be stuck at their 15 or 20 megawatts that you contracted.
Whatever they lease is what they have for the next, we'll call it 15 years.
Okay.
So
Okay.
now if they want to absorb someone else's lease, right, just like use the condo, you know, if you want to absorb your neighbor's lease on a condo, that's commercial business terms.
Okay. But if you're providing 80, I don't know what the number is, but if you're providing 80 megawatts, you will not be able to provide 100 and need more cooling. That's what I'm
No,
saying.
the transmission lines and the substation will be sized for that megawatt number in our final design.
So
There's no magic way to make more.
It will not grow, the cooling demand will not increase, and therefore, this is where I want to go with some witness, there will not be more noise generated on the rooftop cooling unit.
No, the equipment we installed day one will be there for the life of the building. There's no increase in capacity available.
Okay. Another question, unrelated. I read your website. You are providing STEM training, or you're helping school districts and community colleges with that. Do you have any intention to do something similar to that here?
QTS is a great community partner in 100 ways. Like I said earlier, we support a lot of new veteran jobs. We support STEM programs in many communities. Most of the time, it's on the community to talk to QTS and tell us what the community needs the most. We have programs in place to support 100 different options for the community. We've always supported East Windsor whenever asked. If that's something that East Windsor School District is passionate about, we can absolutely have a serious conversation. We actually have an entire arm of the company and a C-suite executive that supports our giving back.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, so I don't know if this is on you or anyone else. So you did at the last meeting talk about noise.
Louder, please.
Yeah. Okay. Try it. Okay. How's that?
Yes.
Okay.
My phone's not working.
Right, that is true. See, my own folks did this to me. Okay, at the last meeting, you did talk about noise, but I think it is something that comes up. And we have people here tonight and for the board as well. I think it would be helpful. You talked about power outages and the rare number of times that you needed to use the emergency backup. Why don't you talk about more broadly the data center operations, the existence of the generators? You did reference a little bit the cooling system, but any noise impacts that are of concern to the public have been raised through the things that you are reading, and you can throw vibrations into that as well. And if you're going to do it with someone else, that's fine, but I do want to make sure that we ask you to cover that fully and allow for any concerns to be raised on that as well.
Yeah, Mayor, we have our consulting engineer here who can talk in detail to that.
If it's okay with the board, we'll go next with this.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
So, since the question about vibrations, noise, I'll have Joe Horesco call. He was here at the last meeting.
Yeah, sir, you're still on the oath. Just state your name for the record. Mr.
Chang before he testifies. Do you have any other witnesses after this?
My last witness would be Matt Cozeman, with just kind of a revised site plan showing the bank parking, removing one of the drive aisles.
Okay.
Which will be a few minutes.
Joseph Varesco, on site deck. Was there more to what you need from me? I just want to make sure I could.
No, I think the general question was the mayor had some concerns.
He meant for identification.
Yeah, right, for identification purposes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so, big picture to answer your question there, we previously provided a report summarizing the results for compliance with all the regulations. We compared to ambient, generally speaking, the sound levels would be below what existing ambients are. We looked at the vibrations. We did measurements on an emergency generator while it was operating. We found it was very difficult to measure the vibrations from that at any distance away from the generator. But I have since gone back and expanded that analysis because that was only one generator. We want to be as thorough as possible. So I've expanded that analysis to include every generator on site all running at the same time and what those vibrations would be. So I do have a report that
I don't know, Mr. Sachs, if you want us to mark this. This is April 8th, 2026 vibration propagation study.
Yeah, let's mark it as A12, I think. A12.
So I know you're handing out, so I won't provide anything too far ahead of it. But the beginning of this memo is restating the previous memo that I had already provided on the measurements, results of those measurements, and that we had trouble actually measuring vibration at any distance except directly next to the generator. But what I've done is then add the vibrations from multiple generators together and propagated or showed calculations of that further away from the site. In order to do that, I actually took a level that is the highest level that I measured while the generator is operating, but is also the same level as the ambient. So I'm really taking a very conservative number in this case, meaning that there was no change, but I'm using that number anyway just to be as conservative as I possibly can. What I've also then done is added all of the generators from building 1 together, assuming that they're all exactly at the same location, which of course is not the way the site's laid out. They're separated by tens of feet each. And I've done the same thing for the second building generators. I then looked at how much vibration would be expected to propagate away from those generators using some basic vibration calculations, assuming the worst case scenario of a hard soil, which is like the vibrations bouncing off bedrock all the way around, right? And you still get some reduction by that, but it's the least amount of reduction that you can possibly see. And the truth is that it's probably not even close to accurate because I couldn't even measure so close to the generator. So if I had hard soil or bedrock, I would have been able to measure it, but I couldn't. So it's very likely that I'm over conservative in that sense as well. And so what I have here on my page 3 of this memo is a chart, a table, excuse me, showing how much vibration there would be from all of these generators operating together at distances away from them. And at distances that are close to where the nearest residences would be, which are on the order of 1,000 feet. I think maybe 900 will be used. The number is 75 microinches per second for DC for the first building, and 130 for the second building. Those levels are at like quantum research level for compute. Like it is unreasonable. I mean, the ambient levels we measured were 500 microinches per second. So we're at levels that are like quantum research level vibrations. That's what would be expected to be received at the nearest residences.
So just for us lay people, would you qualify that as physically impossible for a neighbor to be able to feel that vibration?
Yes, based on what we have here. It's feelability for, oh, I thought I was, I'm sorry. Feelability vibration perception for most people is somewhere around 2,000 to 4,000 microinches per second. And we're talking about levels that are under 200. These are kinds of vibration levels that you can only pick up in sensitive labs with really sensitive equipment. And again, that's the worst case. If I flip it and use like normal soil conditions, that number is lower than 1. It's just not on the scale of what you could possibly feel.
I have nothing further for Mr. Maresca.
And could you just directly answer whether all of the equipment and generators operate in compliance with the township noise standards?
Yes, yes.
You were talking about vibration. She was asking about.
Well, sorry. Well, yes, there was no standard for vibration necessarily.
Yes, I changed.
But specifically, the operation of the cooling equipment will be below all of the standards.
For DEP and for what East Windsor regulations, is that accurate?
That's correct.
So at the closest house, which is about 900 feet, with all the generators running, or the cooling, or the cooling
I can't
fans
hear your
running.
question.
At 900 feet, which is the closest house, you already testified you couldn't possibly feel the vibration, but what in decibels would be the noise coming from the generators, and also what would the noise be coming from the cooling on the roof?
Yeah, so I do actually have to clarify, because the cooling is the focus for nighttime, because the generators would not be tested during the nighttime hours. But if there were an all-on, all the generators operating together in a power outage at night, that would be over, but they are also exempt from the limits in those cases, an emergency case.
Are you talking about vibration or decibels?
This is decibels. Yeah, there's no limit on vibration.
So if it's just cooling, forget about the emergency, just cooling.
Just cooling,
Yeah.
yeah.
What would the decibel level be at 900 feet?
It's below 45 decibels for just the cooling.
And that would be 24/7, correct?
Correct.
And what is the ambient at that location?
We measured, I actually know I was outside at midnight on one of the nights, and it was about 40 decibels out there at the absolute lowest period, which is the lull in between traffic. And so ambient levels were mostly above that number.
And I know the sound transmission varies depending on what direction, humidity, and so on. Was that a best case or a worst case? Not the ambient, but the actual noise coming from the fans.
Right, so the way our model is constructed, it applies a wind condition of about 7 miles per hour. Temperature is somewhere between 50 and 70, but it doesn't change much based on temperature. And that assumes that the wind is going in absolutely every direction at the same time, right? So you put the point there, and it propagates in every direction, assuming the wind is blowing in that direction to give you that worst case. So that's what our model has.
For the generators, can you address any emissions or any other environmental impacts beyond the noise that might be of concern to anyone from that source?
Yeah, I would have to hand that over to somebody else.
Robert Costa.
Mayor, all of our generators are in complete compliance with New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, federal EPA standards, all the clear and clean air standards. We meet everything for all of our generators.
I do have a noise question and an air question. I'll start with the noise, I guess. During the last meeting, you did testify that the propagation study, which was the modeling, did not include the existing generators and coolers, but that you made an assessment of what the contribution might be, and I think you said it was maybe 3 to 4 decibels, if I remember correctly?
Yes, that's correct. And I actually did go back and remodel with them. And they're actually lower than what was reported in that first submission because they had assumed typical louvers instead of what's actually installed, which are acoustical louvers. So their levels are already high. So based on what they had already provided, we were talking about that kind of increase. The reality is their contribution is even lower than what they were predicting before, which brings my numbers back down as well.
Will that be submitted as well, or revised assessment?
Yeah, we didn't resubmit because we were in compliance, but we can certainly do so.
Better than it was
Yeah,
before,
it's
so
better.
you're
It's
not-
reduction, so if we didn't feel the need, we can certainly do that if needed.
Okay.
Please do that.
Understanding that modeling is predictive and not real life, but that you did model potentially worst case scenarios, is there the possibility that you could provide actual monitoring of the system and when it's approved, if it were to be installed, to verify for the residents, I'm concerned both to the nearest resident to the south, and I think in one of your figures, the resident in the north was also getting closer as well, just to provide the assurances that the township ordinances are not being exceeded during actual operation. It will not be fully built out for a while, so that might need to go on if you're agreeable to this, to monitor. We can talk about frequency, but at some point when it's fully built out, I think that's when the public will be assured that noise levels will remain below ordinance levels.
Yeah, we certainly have systems that are capable of monitoring continuously, and I understand that would be agreeable to QTS as well.
Another question about the emergency generator situation. I understand you do not need to comply with the state ordinance on noise levels during emergency situations. Are there temporary mitigation measures that could be put into place if you had an extended outage that would need multiple days of emergency generator running? And you had enclosures for the ones in the front of the building. I'm not sure if there's something that's temporary that could potentially be used. I'm not familiar enough with those techniques.
Yeah, well, I'll first start by saying that in the event of a full power outage where all the generators operate simultaneously, they're below the daytime limits. So it would only be the nighttime condition that would be over, which, again, I'll have to probably hand this over to Rod to answer how they would handle that.
Unfortunately, we don't know when that's going to happen, right? We can't plan on the next Superstorm Sandy. So having some sort of temporary measure just in case would be very impractical. The generators are also designed to have a certain amount of airflow through them.
We can't hear you.
Good job.
It's that mic.
Sorry, everybody.
Stop talking now.
I will start over so everyone can hear the answer. Unfortunately, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know when the next Superstorm Sandy is going to come. We don't know when we're going to have to run on a generator for 4 or 5 days. Even if we did, the generators are designed to have a certain amount of airflow across them. They're designed to run at a certain RPM to create the right number of kilowatts at 60 hertz of power. Installing some sort of temporary measure in the day leading up to a major weather event or other catastrophe would be very impractical for us. Like everyone here, we don't want to go through it again. We just have to be prepared for it because we are considered a utility. We're regulated under the same as Verizon Wireless and JCPenney.
And then I did have one question about the air permitting. I'm not sure if you're the right person. At the last meeting, someone testified that you submitted a synthetic minor application. My understanding about synthetic minors, you need to take restrictions in order to stay below the major source threshold. I'm not sure if the terminology used is correct, if you're a natural miner or if you're a synthetic miner. But if you did need to take restrictions, do you recall what they were? And the generators themselves, do they comply with Tier 4 federal standards or?
Yes, they do comply. We are a synthetic miner. We do have restrictions, which is why we limit the amount of exercise time we have per month. We are only granted so many hours for the entire campus. So, regardless of what it is, we only have, and I apologize, I don't know what our run hours per year is. We only have X number of hours that we can run those generators unless we are in an actual emergency situation.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, and you may have. I'm just curious, and you may have answered the question, but understanding that hopefully it's a limited experience, but if we're running all the generators at night, what can the neighbors expect from noise?
Yeah. So
we've got a scale there. Maybe that would be helpful. Is that what we're showing over there?
Yeah, we're in the light green between the yellow and the 50. So it's by tens, which is the 60 decibel range. But we're actually below. We're mostly in the 50s. Actually, I think we'll just confirm this in my report. I'm fairly certain we don't get over 60. No, we don't even hit 60. So it's in the 50s. Right, which on our chart, is so your dishwasher running.
Yeah. 2 hours. By the way, Mr. Chairman, I think court reporting would like to take a break, but let's see if there's any.
Oh, exactly.
Well, it's not holding out.
We're here 2 hours and 10 minutes.
I understand that, folks.
You want to speak? You want to speak? It's not right. It's not right.
We have to follow a process. Be quiet. We have to follow a process here. Everybody is entitled to due process of the law, both the applicant and you. It will be orderly. There will be a time to speak after all the witnesses have spoken and the applicant has finished his presentation. I said that at the beginning. So just wait, and there will be plenty of time to speak.
Before the break, I plan to have a 2-minute direct from Scylla Chair. Would that be okay? And then it's nice that the court reporter's here. She's been typing away for 2 hours. I know it's difficult for a lot of us sitting here, but she's been typing away, so let's try to be a little bit considerate of this.
Mr. Chang, is this going to be your last witness on
Yes.
arrest?
Yep. Last witness.
And then you're resting at that point?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
This will be 1 minute or 2 minutes. Mr. Kunzman, you're still under oath. The purpose of recalling you is just to go over some of the site changes that were requested by the board and I believe the public. Could you just walk us through it quickly? And also the site visits to the neighbors, please.
Sure. So the first exhibit I'm going to introduce is Exhibit 813. This is the overall site plan prepared by Bowler dated April 27, 2026. All right, so what we did here is we revised the site plan based on comments that we received at the last planning board meeting. So on the 1 mile road extension on the northeast driveway that enters into the site, we removed the improvements that we're
Could you
proposing.
please turn the plan so that it faces us?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I should get a photocopy of it.
So we removed the driveway radius that increased the radius for truck access. Now that is proposed for truck access at the driveway that exists today on Princeton Heights Town Road. We are also banking 30 parking spaces. So now the parking spaces located in the northwest corner of the proposed building will be grass in the install condition with the ability to pave them in the event that additional parking spaces are needed. Additionally,
it was requested to provide some dimensions of where the data center is to the surrounding uses. So the data center 1 building, so that's the existing building on the northeast or the eastern side of the property. The closest resident on Dutch Neck Road is approximately 1,167 feet away from this building. The data center 2 building, so that's the proposed building, is 1,202 feet from the closest resident on Wilmer Drive. The data center 2 building to the closest resident on Windsor Drive is 2,006 feet away. The proposed substation, which is located between or behind the data center 2 building and the data center 1 building, is 1,235 feet from 1 Mile Road. Additionally, the substation is located 725 feet from the closest resident on Wilmer Drive at their property corner. And additionally, the buffer proposed from this proposed project is 1,528 feet, and we're increasing the buffer by 114 feet.
I have nothing further for Mr. Kunzman. I will open to the board for any clarifications.
Any questions from the board? Okay.
Those are all my witnesses. That's my direct testimony, and I was hoping that it would be responsive to the questions that were posed on March 9th. If we could have a brief recess.
Yes.
For the board, that'd be appreciated.
Yeah. Okay, we'll recess for about 5 minutes. Okay, well, anyone will open it up for public comments now. You raise your hand and identify yourself.
Public comment now.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay. All right, we're open for public comments. Just raise your hands and we'll do it. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, name and address, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Chip Cherry. I'm Conservation Chair for the Central Group of the Sierra Club. I have a lot of questions regarding the closed loop. My understanding is that the closed loop is not being used right now on the facility that's in place. It's using water in the normal process. The idea of using water as a coolant, and you can use air instead, is that you're using evaporation to cool down the facility, which is creating a lot of energy. My understanding is that this is going to be a 70 megawatt facility when it's all completed. And we all know that computers create a lot of heat. That's the whole issue here. So I just want to point out that normally in an open loop water system, you have evaporation of 70 to 80%. So we're talking about something very dynamic, something technologically new, something that's not commonly used right now for data centers. So I think we need to get more research and understand better how this system is going to work and whether it's going to work and all the rest of it. Right now, they're consuming a lot of water out of the utility system. And just so you all know, we are in a state of drought. We've been in a state of drought for a long time, and we are continuing that way. There's nothing in the future that's telling us right now that the drought is going to be starting to lift. We have a problem with surface water. We haven't had enough rain for several years. We have not had enough snow. We have not replenished our reservoirs sufficiently. Now, the authority uses only underground water. They're taking it out of the aquifer. They're not using surface water, but the whole area is using surface water. The aquifer goes all the way down to Maryland and Virginia. It covers over 2,000 square miles. And the largest water company in New Jersey is American Water Company, and they obviously are at a different league than the small utility that's handling East Windsor, which is a public authority. So recently there have been, besides the drought, there have been a lot of new environmental regulations, and there's been a lot of deferred maintenance. And between Pennsylvania and New Jersey, there are a lot of smaller water companies that are being taken over by larger companies because the smaller companies can't handle the cost of the deferred maintenance and don't have the personnel or the new regulations. So there's a lot of turbulence going on. Right now, East Windsor gets their water from the Potomac, Rare to Magothy, and they go down at least 560 feet. I was just hearing maybe a little deeper than that. But they're not at the top of the aquifer, they're going way down. And they're using pumps to pump the water out. It's not coming out in an artesian manner, it's coming out because they're pumping more water than is going in. And that's a problem with the entire aquifer going all the way down to Virginia, is that aquifer is going down. The levels are going down. And water is a finite material. There's no more of it. We don't have a way to create new water. So we have to be very careful with the water we have. There's also pollution getting into the top of the aquifer. We have VOCs, volatile organics, getting into the top of the aquifer because of all the pushing and pulling that's going on. We're getting cone effects where there are pumps, which is a little bit like when you take a straw and suck your milkshake, and you get this sort of cone around your straw. And that's what's happening with the pumping going on into the aquifer. So I think that the board needs to know a lot more. We are in what they call a drought warning now. New Jersey's in a drought warning. And it's critical that we husband all of our water. I think it's fantastic that they're talking about new technology, but we don't know how well it's going to work. It's going to cost more, of course, for the utility, which will, well, depending on who's getting the cost. But we have a situation in which the rates of water are going way up, and there's no end in sight. It's going to continue to have higher rates of water in our water. So I'll just stop right there, but I just want to plant a few seeds that there's more that the board needs to know. Thank you very much.
I think we addressed this in direct testimony already.
Is the first phase closed loop or open loop?
50% of that building is closed loop, all of the new equipment. The existing equipment that we inherited from McGraw Hill is an evacuative system.
Please, didn't mention that.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. All of the new equipment in the addition is a closed loop system. The existing equipment that we inherited from McGraw Hill is an evaporative system. I don't have the end of life date with me, but that equipment will be changed out at end of life. And just to hit on one point, the closed loop systems aren't new. They've been around for 35 years. They were less efficient in the past than they are now, which is why they were not as widely used. The evaporative systems were more cost effective for people to install. The technology is not new, nothing has changed. It's just with our ability to be more efficient with electrical motors and with radiators, it's now more financially feasible to operate a data center with closed loop cooling.
Okay, yes, back there. Yes. Yeah, give us your name and your address, please. Sure.
Hi, my name is Michael Wolf from 7 Cherry Brook Lane, East Windsor. First of all, I gotta say I'm embarrassed to be in East Windsor. Go to the high school and watch one of their productions. You can hear everything that everybody says. Come to a planning board meeting, which you know is going to draw people switch the venue, and you have, it's ridiculous, it's embarrassing. It really is embarrassing. These things should be up on a screen. This is high school stuff. This is high school stuff. And they come in with the box, and they can't put it on a screen. Are you serious? That's going to tell you what you're dealing with here. The other thing is, I've heard a lot about water and utilities and everything else. Their utility person is a paid gun by them to tell you what he thinks. He thinks. But one of the things he did say was, Jersey got a 2.5% raise in the utilities because they have to buy their power. If we're going to have more power, they're going to have to buy more power, which means it's going to go up. It's not going to go down. Come on.
Right.
Consider your source. Try to get another opinion, not just go by what he says. The other thing is, driving down 1 Mile Road and 571, I think it looks, I mean, they had a pretty picture up here of the building. It was really pretty. And it really was. But to me, it looks like a cross between a prison and a mausoleum. Why do we have that fence around on 1 Mile Road? Why do we have these orange and white blockades keeping people from... What we have done is we built a target in East Windsor. Go to the pharmacies. They have controlled drugs. Do they have barriers and fences around them? No. Go to the banks. Do they have barriers? No. They have barriers around their building. And there are barriers going this way to keep people out. That's a target. That is a target. Period.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Frank. I've been a resident of East Windsor for 34 years. I love the township. So I believe it really comes down to one question. Is the approval of this project a plus or a minus for our township? For me, the issue is not electricity. The issue is noise.
Yes.
There's a project in Vineland, not by this project, not by this company, but a different company. I believe it recently opened. Is that correct? Everybody know about that? You can go and do an AI check. I did. It recently opened. And within 2 weeks of it opening, you had a riot of people pounding on the council door about the noise issue. The promises that corporation made are the same promises here. So we have a negotiation. If GTS wants certain things, have them put it in writing, have it be a contract. If he breaks the contract, there are penalties. Not penalties where you have to go to court and sue. Clear, specific guidelines, penalties. As far as noise is concerned, that is an easy thing to measure. Most people have a phone. In my iPhone, I have the ability to test noise levels. If you want to get an idea of a noise level of this project, go to the bypass on 133. Park your car and listen to the drone of the traffic. Then take your car and drive on the other side of the barrier and listen to the noise of the traffic. And that's going to give you a pretty good idea what it's going to sound like 24/7. Not for a couple of hours while your vacuum cleaner might be running, or your AC or blender or whatever else they had on that chart. Noise is an issue. Now, if the township wants to go ahead with it, they need to be very, very sure about what reputation we're going to get for having a data center. Will it help us with our property values? Is it plus or a minus? I think really it's that simple. What is the benefit to us as residents for this project? Perhaps somebody on the PCS.
I just want to make a quick distinction, because like everybody here, I have seen all of the videos from Vineland. It's not the data center. That project is using on-site generation. What you're hearing in the videos are the turbines that they are using to generate their own electricity. It's a total misconception that that is the data center noise. That project is using on-site generation. They are diesel and natural gas turbines. That's the noise that you hear. I've seen the video too. I live in New Jersey. I don't want to be negatively impacted by any of this. That is not the profile of a QTS data center.
And you've also been in operation, correct? Have you ever had noise complaints?
It's a good point, Jeff. This has been a data center for 20 years. Before we bought it from McGraw-Hill as a data center. In the 20 years that we've been there, our operations team has never had someone come up to the property, nor have we heard from the township that we have generated noise that has caused a problem. We've heard when the grass is too high, we've heard when the delivery trucks are coming too early. No one has ever told us in the 20 years that it's been there and the 14 that we've owned it, that we're generating noise that creates an uncomfortable situation for a resident.
At any of the centers?
Of this
Well, we can only speak about this application. MLUL is limited to only this application, East Windsor. I mean, Rob, if you want to talk about other QTS sites, but it's not germane to this board. We're not really actually allowed to talk about other sites. It's not, you know, let Mr. Sachs qualify it, but we're limited to what we filed here, what we testified to, our reports, and what the public is asking for.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
You just said it was going to be as loud as a dishwasher, so are you sleeping next to a dishwasher running every night, or is that just, like you just said that?
Please, I didn't recognize you. I'd like to do this in an orderly fashion.
But I'm just, it's a follow-up
If you want
question.
to speak, raise your hand. Please, ma'am, please. You're out of turn. Pink, I saw your pink sleeve, yes.
Hello, Catherine Hunt, I'm in Monroe Township. Catherine Hunt in Monroe Township. Thank you. So I went to a number of people in our senior center and just asked my neighbors what they thought. They said, oh no, my electrical bill is way too high. As you remember, perhaps it affected you too, the electrical bills went up this fall. And during this winter, they were very high for people. And we heard a lot of discussion about it. We heard from our legislators, we heard from the news, and we learned that it's because of data centers, because they're using so much electricity, and we're all on the same grid. About 13 or 14 states are all on the same grid. And it may not be local to you, but it's because of the entire grid, the effect of all this demand on the entire grid. So if they build data centers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Virginia, all of that comes off the same grid, and we end up with the higher prices. So these are all seniors, and we're having to stop heating our homes through the winter. I just plain stopped mine. I had to, because there was no way I could pay that electrical bill. And I asked another friend about it, and they were all saying, well, oh no, no more data centers. And if our legislators vote for that, they know that we would never vote again for them.
My name is...
Excuse me,
Everyone hear me?
excuse me, we're doing very well. I just want to remind everybody, I'd like to keep the comments to 3 to 5 minutes, which I think you're doing. But we'd like to wrap this up maybe within... I didn't finish my I did not finish my sentence, please. I would like to wrap it up in about an hour, okay?
My name is Danelle Knapp. I live in Twin Rivers. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I actually have 2 questions, but let me be sure I've got my facts straight. They want to build what's basically a 7-story high building that encloses 5 acres of interior space, and they claim there will be, no one will hear it, see it, feel it, smell it, or suffer from it in any way. Is that essentially, no, what, my facts are wrong.
Danelle, I'd love to build a 7-story building somewhere. It's not practical or
77
feasible.
feet, how many stories would you say?
It's 2 stories.
Someone here said it's 77 feet high.
That's correct. A commercial building story is about 22 feet high, and that also would include our rooftop equipment.
To the rest of us, the story is about 10 to 11 feet.
In residential construction, you are absolutely
Okay, so
correct.
we're talking 77 feet high, called 5 stories, called 7 stories, called 1 story. It's the height that we all recognize as 7 stories high.
It's the same height as the warehouse across the street.
It encloses 5,000 square feet interior, 5 acres, I'm sorry.
No, it's not 5 acres. I'd have to go back to our
What I read.
square footage.
Don't lose your time, don't lose your time.
Okay. My question is, to what extent has this board independently looked into the negative externalities involved here? Negative externalities are the costs this thing will impose on us that they're not going to pay, that we're going to have to pay for. The greenhouse gas emissions, the increased traffic, the decrease in property values, the noise pollution, the air pollution, whatever. And to the extent that you've taken their estimates into account, have you contractually, like the other gentleman said, imposed monetary penalties on them for not adhering to those standards?
I'll respond to that. First of all, as to your first question, whether or not there's been an independent review of this plan, yes, that's occurred through the professionals for the town, our board engineer or planner.
I didn't ask if there was an independent review. I asked if you calculated the negative externalities.
Well, let me finish my comment. So the application has been reviewed by our staff. To answer your second question, I forgot what your second question was.
I haven't asked my second
question. But I'm
going to. My second question is, who benefits from this? Clearly, none of us think we do. So
the other question you asked, and I think it was alluded to by another speaker, was a contract. Well, there's no, if in fact this board acts favorably on this application, there's no contract. But what's prepared is a resolution, all right, which has all of the conditions of any approval that this board acts in that manner. If there's a violation of any of those conditions, the operation gets shut down. That would be a violation of a site plan approval and a violation of the actual approval itself. So there are enforcement mechanisms which occur.
I think you need to look a little more closely at all the ramifications, the traffic, the noise, the greenhouse gases, everything, and calculate them monetarily. Thank you.
I'm Jeanette Bergeron from Hamilton, New Jersey. My first question is, who paid for the research on the cost of electricity? And if it was QTS, then it's pretty biased, probably. And the research only looked at one of the two costs of electricity that we all pay. It looked at the infrastructure or delivery charge, not the supply or energy charge, which is the charge because of the law of supply and demand. When there is more demand, that supply charge will increase, and it will probably overtake any savings there might be from QTS paying for its own infrastructure for the delivery. With regards to the water, is the water treated with PFAS or PFOAs, which are forever chemicals? And in the closed loop system, when water is discharged, how is it treated before reaching a sewer system? Is it just through stormwater management, which is not, it's kind of like Mother Nature treating it, and PFAS and PFOAs are not going to be cleared from that. And then the last question is, because you will be having lights around the wetlands, and because of the 50% decrease on average of the insect population over the last 20 years, I wanted to know if you would be willing to consider using lights that comply with Dark Sky International's protocols for allowing less light, ambient light to escape, and allowing for insects to populate the wetlands.
I'm going to hit your last couple questions, then I'm going to let Matt talk for another minute on the power story, because that's what he's here for. Sorry guys, I'm trying to be as close as I can. No, there are no PFAS chemicals in our treatment. Again, that is an older technology. We don't require it to treat our water. When we do discharge, we discharge in compliance with both state and federal regulations. QTS has never had a violation where we've discharged any water that did not meet the requirements of either a state or federal requirement. Dark skylights, yes, we will comply with dark skylights, especially around the wetlands. So, do you want to touch on the power question real quick?
So, I think the questions were who funded our research, and did it include all the components? That data that I put up earlier and talked about today was from a report that was funded by the Edison Electric Institute. That's the utility trade group and think tank that represents all the utility companies in North America, with a remit to sort of have good governance, have good market design, understand important trends, things like that. They are generally regarded as apolitical, although anyone's welcome to check them out on their website, which is where you find our report. The report was not funded by QTS, so I do not think is a member. And so it's totally separate from anything that QTS had paid for. As for the components that were in the costs, those were all-in rates. So those were the rates that customers paid for generation, transmission, distribution, and energy supplies on their bills during those periods.
Can I follow up a question on that specific point, please?
Yes.
I just want to point out that...
Can you come up here, please?
I'm coming. So the data that was up before...
Just wait.
Come up. We need your name and your residence.
Lorraine McKay. I live in Hickory Acres. So that report, when you put up the heat map of the different areas of the country that were unevenly affected by these cost increases, California had its own problem, and the Northeast had its own problem, and then the middle of the country was all good. And then later, you put up the other chart, and it was showing that all the places that looked like the promising, oh, hey, look, our electric rates are going to go down. This is what is projected. Those were all coming from parts of the country that didn't have California's issue, which is not our issue, but none of that data came from the Northeast. And so we have this specific delivery problem, as you say, because we buy our power off the grid. So all those promising projections of how our rates are going to go down, everywhere you saw that on the map, those were all places that didn't seem to be in that area of the country that was affected by that. So I just wanted to point out that if you looked at those data, they weren't lining up in that way. So I'm not asking you to particularly comment on it, because I know it wasn't your research, but I did notice that about the data. So I wanted to point that out.
It seems that we're saying the places where it was most expensive were not where the data centers had gone first to build, and I think that makes sense.
No,
Well,
that's not what I'm saying.
no, well, I think it might be. Those examples that we had were of data centers that had approached the regulator and the legislature and gotten a project commercialized on the basis of some benefits. And
That's not what I'm saying. No. Okay. All right.
all right, well, in that case,
Not what I'm saying. I'm talking about, you showed, or the, yeah, California, okay? It's over here. All right, where's the one in California? You had one chart where, maybe it's on the back, this one? It is on the back of, okay, so here's our heat map, and it shows California, and California's got its own issues with the wildfires. That's not us. Okay? You got the middle of the country. That is not the issue. You got us up here, and we were told that it was because of how we get our power, and we are buying it, not generating it. Fine. So then, just later on, so I'm done with that. Later on, we get this map that says mounting evidence that data centers help reduce retail rates. All the mounting evidence, California aside, because California is not us, as we were told over here, all the other evidence is coming from places that are not us. So how is it going to impact? That's
Repeat the last part of the clap.
okay. My point was that those two maps, the heat map and then the data. So just how is that going to, how does that impact us? Because apparently we have a different story about why our rates went up. So ignore California. But the rest of where all that promising mounting evidence is coming from, that rates will go down, none of that's us. So how does it relate to us? That's what I want to know. It's not going down.
certainly, I'm not sure I'm seeing the distinction, but the way it would benefit customers in New Jersey is the same way it benefits customers anywhere else. That the data centers come in, they pay for their investment costs, and they share part of the system costs. That there have been rapidly rising rates in the meantime doesn't negate those mechanics, doesn't mean that doesn't still apply here. But what it does tell you is the data centers started at the places where costs were lowest because that comported with their business model. But there are a lot of places that are looking into this because they have rapidly rising rates and as a way to address the rapidly rising rates. And one perspective is you have exposure to wholesale markets that are volatile. Those wholesale markets look like they're going to stay volatile. And so if there's an opportunity to bring in a new customer who could help offset that upward pressure on rates, Maybe that's something worth thinking about.
Starting with the conclusion and then getting to the other.
Linda Caffrey, 61 Mile Road, East Windsor, New Jersey. I was at a meeting in Hightstown Saturday night having nothing to do with the planning board, QTS, nothing. Chit chat. A realtor there told me he now puts on listings, and it's his decision in his office, and includes data centers in the negative impacts on that particular property. And I said, is this a residence? He said, yes. You know, when you put a landfill or all of the things that might negatively affect the value of your property, he now includes data centers. That is no good for East Windsor. No good for East Windsor. And I don't know if anybody heard this on Wilmer Drive, Scott Drive, or Dutch Neck Road, a small part of it. You will hear the hum. You will hear the hum, as will people who come to look at your house to buy it. It's no good for East Windsor.
My name is Juan Risby. I live at 5 Taps Court. On AWN, Risby, R-I-Z-V-I. I live at 5 Taps Court, so just a couple minutes down from the data center. I'm a lifelong resident. I've been here my entire life. I'm an advocate and I'm a public servant, most recently serving as a policy advisor to Governor Phil Murphy. I just wanted to say allowing this expansion exactly would not just be bad policy, it would be bad public service. Because I've lived here my entire life. Throughout my entire lifetime, throughout my entire lifetime, I've watched our energy and water bills rise significantly, contributing to the increasingly unaffordable cost of living. That's especially prevalent here in our town, to the point where my family, now for the first time in our life, has to seriously consider the feasibility of continuing our lives here. So, really glad our fellow constituent in the back brought up misleading evidence, because a lot of the evidence brought up by Charles River Associate, by DCRI evidence, do absolutely nothing to separate from the truth that these data centers consume substantial quantities of energy from our grid. The fact that our electric grid is managed by PGM interconnection has absolutely nothing.
Yeah, slow it down.
Yeah, my bad. The fact that our electric grid is managed by PGM interconnection has absolutely nothing to do with that. Interconnected or not, when you use significantly more energy from the grid, the cost goes up for the rest of us. Now, as a lifelong constituent and resident living just 2 minutes down the road from QTS data center, I implore you to consider the impact on the quality of life this will further have on my neighbors and I. The overwhelming consumption of energy pollutants to our air, water, and quiet neighborhood. We don't want the noise, we don't want the pollution, we don't want to foot another bill for more data centers. So thank you, and please consider the testimony of all my fellow constituents that showed up today.
Carol Murray, Wilmore Drive. One low battery, so I hope I can read what I've written. To the attorney, you said we could not see QTS building.
Oh, the microphone.
I'm sorry. Walk down Wilmore Drive, go around the corner, house numbers 6, 8, and 10. For some reason, that wood seemed to be clearing out pretty fast. I'm not sure why, because when McGraw Hill was there, we could not see that building. We have Home Depot, we have Walmart, we hide those buildings. Now we have QTS, you can see it from my backyard if you stand out there and really look for it. So check that woods. I don't know from putting the buildings in, but when you come down Wilmore Drive and you go around that corner, it's there. I appreciate the trees you planted behind my yard, the 9 trees that I have to rake the leaves that come up against my fence every fall. I really appreciate if somebody would take, and I think one of them's even dead right now. And, okay, that's one map. Let me see. Okay, now I'm confused. Are we in phase 2 or are we in phase 3? when you said the variances we got, that you got approved for phase 2. Now, are we in phase 3 or are we in phase 2?
This is a whole nother project. Phase 2 was the addition to the existing building. Prior to that, phase 1 was the demolition of the McGraw-Hill office building.
Now, how many more phases? Are we going to have more data centers?
This is all we have planned for this project.
And the solar panels, I've heard so many things. I've heard they're going to do away with solar panels. I've heard you're going to move the solar panels, but the solar panels definitely there. And there's a lot of dead trees around the solar panels, and we don't know around them either anymore.
So you know more than I do. We have a lease for that solar property. That lease doesn't expire until well into the 2030s. And I can tell you that there has been no conversation at QTS about doing anything with that property with the lease being at least 10 years out from expiration.
Okay, so we still have the buzzing until 2032. You do hear the buzzing, and that's what scares me about QTS and the building. When you read all these reports about data centers, you hear other states even put moratoriums on these things. I really feel we don't have enough information or enough about the future of what these buildings are going to do to us. And my concern is, why do we hide Home Depot, Walmart, and Walmart? QTS is out there in the open with a fence around it. Thank you.
Hello everybody, I am Tasman Weisgerber. I live on Monmouth Street in Hightstown, and I'm here today not just as a resident, but somebody deeply committed to environmental justice, public accountability, and protecting the health and future of our community. I urge you to reject approval of this data center for several reasons. First, we know that data centers are massive energy consumers. I'm not going to give you all the data so we can save some time, but when we have families that are already struggling with utility bills and all of the other things that are rising in cost, why would we invite a project that could intensify pressure on electric rates? We also know that data centers are water intensive, although there's apparently a closed loop system that will help with that, apparently. We also know the environmental and health impacts are real. These facilities may be marketed as clean, they are not. We know that they emit pollution linked to asthma and cardiovascular harm, and that matters. It matters for the children who breathe this air, for our seniors. It matters to those already most at risk. Beyond pollution, residents across the country have raised alarms about the noise, like we are aware of, the heat island effects, up to a 17-degree warmer in the immediate vicinity around data centers. It also disrupts animal habitats. And there are also an astonishingly low number of permanent jobs these facilities often provide, which we know that they claim that they are only going to need 30 parking spaces, so that means that at most we may be seeing 30 jobs coming into the community. There are more than $64 billion in proposed data center projects were reportedly delayed or canceled due to organized opposition and governance concerns. Why? Because people are learning the fine print. We are waking up, and once this is built, we live with the consequences. Well, we, our community, will not carry the risk while corporations reap the reward. We need to reject this proposal. So my questions, how many long-term positions do we expect to be made out of this? 40, okay. And what, people have asked it, but I haven't heard anybody answer it. Why? Why should we say yes? Why would we want a data center here?
Yeah, I'm gonna give one point to your second question. Property tax revenue. The amount of money that we will contribute to this town can make a significant difference in your township.
Excuse me, the court reporter has requested that you try to keep it down because she's having difficulty recording. Oh, she's having problems hearing the person speaking. I think that's because of the noise, right? Speak your voice. Okay.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Kamen from Princeton, and I'm here for a different tact. And I wanted to know how many of you heard that a Chinese AI company, Alibaba, recently the security team discovered that the AI agent was purchasing lots and lots of cryptocurrency without being instructed to do it and with no knowledge of anyone in the company. And there's a lot of questions recently about AI's possible impact, that it could cause the extinction of humans on Earth, and that it's not really aligned with being good for humanity. It has its own, there's a lot of new books out there, they're fantastic books like the If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies, about super AI. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, but I don't know, have you guys heard about that? Yes or no? Are you hearing about the extinction level risk that Elon Musk has said on Joe Rogan, that there's a 20% chance that it will wipe out humanity, and that our best possible options are that to become enmeshed with AI, to become part of AI? Have you heard about the existential risks of it? Because all of the major AI players are talking about it. Bill Gates, Larry Ellison, the head of AI at Google, Jeffrey Hinton, who believes there's a 10 to 20% chance for AI to wipe us all out. Anyway, we don't have to, so this is a big facility. This is not a small facility that they're proposing. I looked up it. It looks like it's 70 megawatts. Is that correct?
No, it's not.
How much is it?
We haven't fully designed, but we don't have the square footage, nor do we have the opportunity for that much power.
Okay. Well, we don't know who the tenants will be, who you're going to be, which AI companies you're going to be working with, right?
So, first off, we don't have any potential leases in place because we don't have a viable project yet. We don't go sell. What I can tell you, and I can't speak specifically to our clients, is as a company, we will not align with many Chinese and North Korean companies that are not good actors, so to speak. We have said no to business over the years that didn't align culturally with our business.
But you saw that OpenAI that makes ChatGPT just took a Pentagon contract that involves autonomous weapons and mass surveillance of Americans.
I can't speak to their business.
Well, that is a fact. It was in the news a lot. Anthropic had, which makes Claude, had refused to allow them to do it, and then OpenAI stepped in. Today, there's a lawsuit that just started when Elon Musk originally funded OpenAI because it was supposed to be a nonprofit dedicated to helping humanity, but instead it became a for-profit company that's just been in a race and neglecting all of the safety things. Everything, there's a book called If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies, that's really covers the same kind of problem that is covered in the Google DeepMind AI safety class. It's, of course, it's a real issue. Anyway, Senator Bernie Sanders has proposed a 6-month moratorium on new data centers and new training of AI agents. And I brought copies of a summary of it with me for the planning board members. And I think that we should really try to support what he's doing, because when push comes to shove, you want to be able to tell your family members that you tried to protect humanity, that this is a real issue. Anyway, so I'm going to, who would I give these to?
I'd like to give other people a chance to speak.
Were you aware of that Alibaba incident where it was discussed in Sam Harris' podcast with Tristan Harris? My name is Olga Vitrenko. Olga Vitrenko, V-I-D, Olga, and last name Vitrenko, V-I-D-R-E-N-K. I live in Winchester Drive, and I have a couple of questions in several areas. And first is the noise study. So it looks like there was an updated noise study. Huh? It doesn't rely on the same measurements that were done back in December and January, which you presented at the previous meeting.
I'm sorry, could you?
I understand there was an updated noise study. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to see that before the meeting. But do you rely on the same measurements that were done back in December and January?
Right, so the vibration analysis that I updated tonight was based on the vibration measurements that I took back in December. I elaborated on that analysis tonight, and so those were based on those measurements. As far as analysis goes, we're doing that based on a model, not measurements.
Is there a reason why the noise study was done back in winter? I remember that you presented as a benefit that you managed to isolate the assessed data center 2 noise levels. But in the summertime, when the ambient noise, when it stacks up together with air conditioners running, that will increase the total noise level. So is there a chance that the same measurements can be done in the summertime to see what the model would be?
Yeah, and just to clarify, our analysis was based on the QTS equipment running at maximum capacity. And that is a level that is below the township code and below most of the ambient conditions, especially during daytime and even most of the nighttime hours. In the summer, we expect the ambient to actually be higher. So all of the other residential equipment of the commercial buildings, they'll actually increase the ambient, which will make this even lower compared to the ambient. Because they're already comparing the maximum sound levels from QTS.
Yeah, I understand, but it will add up to the noise levels which the community already experiences. And then there was also a question at the previous meeting about stacking up the cumulative assessment for data center 1, data center 2, and the substation. Do you have these numbers?
I don't have numbers on the substation right now because it's not been, there's no mechanical equipment, as we're saying. We don't have a design for that right now. But I did testify tonight, and it's in to the total from all of the equipment from the 2 different buildings. Yes.
But without substation?
I don't have anything on the substation right now.
There's nothing in the substation mechanical to generate.
There's nothing in the substation mechanical to generate the kind of noise you're talking about. It's switches and transformers.
But well, still, there is some buzzing noise. It does produce some noise, the substation.
I can't comment because I don't know exactly what equipment will be selected. I can tell you, being in some of these substations, it's as quiet as this room.
Then there's also what complaints about the solar panel buzzing that also add up to the noise levels.
So we inherited that as part of this purchase. It wasn't a project that QTS installed. We inherited the lease, and it's not our solar field. It is another company's solar field on property that we own, and we take the power from it to offset our data center usage.
I understand, but it adds up to the total noise levels that are still produced, and that may be higher than the projections that were shown here.
I think that's beyond the scope of our application.
So the noise to be produced by 2 data centers, substation, and substation that's beyond the scope.
No, we've already testified that the noise created by the data centers is below the township requirement.
Okay, then I also have the question, so you don't have the power demand for the 2 data centers, for your data center 2? There's no power.
We have not signed the contract with JCP&L, so we do not have a guaranteed number of megawatts. So we have not designed the building to match that number of megawatts.
Does the closed-loop system capacity depend on the megawatts that you will be selling to tenants on the capacity of this?
The number of chillers directly correlates to the number of megawatts in the building. If JCP&L gives us, I'm going to use a number and it's not a true number, this is an example. If they tell us we can only have 32 megawatts of power, we will install 32 megawatts of cooling. If they tell us we can have 40 megawatts of power, we will install 40 megawatts of cooling. Based on the building footprint size, we cannot exceed a certain number of chillers.
Because at the previous meeting, you mentioned that the initial intake of water would be between 990 and 1,300,000 gallons. And you also mentioned some toppings that the system will require.
Correct. We told you it's approximately the amount of water in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And if we have to do maintenance, if there is a catastrophe, if something fails, we will have to top the system off. However, the system is valved and zoned so that the amount of water replaced is minimal.
Does the system also implies so-called blow-down discharge?
No, it does not. We do not have blow-down discharge.
Okay. And I also have a question that was very nice to see the representative of the Municipal Utility Authority. And the question is, when there's an initial intake of around 600 million gallons,
600,000.
Sorry, 600,000 gallons. Will it affect the, how does it compare to the regular use of water in East Windsor? No, it won't. It won't, because in August 2024, we received a notice about the gross sulfur particle activity in our water, and some of these wells, the offending wells where it was found, they were sealed and they were not used. So if there is a sudden increase or a surge in the water demand, is there any chance that it will affect the wells used and that our tap water quality will be affected?
No, it won't. Not for 600,000 gallons. Even 1.2 million will have no effect on us.
And
we have 5 water treatment plants that are operating. We can produce right now 6.1 million gallons a day. Our average daily use right now is about 2.8. So we have about a little under 4 million in surplus that we could use. Again, right now the drought has no effect on us. All of our wells are pulled from the lower aquifer. Our wells are about 560 feet deep. They're not pulling anything off the upper and the middle. We're pulling directly out of the lower.
And I also have a question about your investment into the power infrastructure. You mentioned that you will fund upfront substation and transmission lines. What happens in case of power failures when, because data centers do affect also transformers, what happens in case there are failures, and are you going to cover those costs too? Because you mentioned that you only had the power outage for 3 days, but unfortunately that data is not publicly available, but I tracked the reports of electricity users, and in 2024 there were at least 16 cases of power outages. There were more in 2025, and some residents mentioned that they are increasing, and part of that because of the effect the data centers have on transformers. So that infrastructure will obviously also need upgrading. If there is some, we don't even know how many megawatt use comes online.
So the substation will belong to QTS and we will pay for it. So that has no effect on the medium voltage power that gets distributed to all of your neighborhoods. The data I collected is from our operations group. Our operations group has to log that data as a requirement in our leases to our clients. So it's not a bunch of dates that we randomly picked. Our current building is fed from a substation on our property. So we are fed directly from the medium voltage service on One Mile Road. It's very possible that neighborhoods had brownouts or power outages. It could have been a local transformer issue. It could have been a downstream issue. Because we are an industrial facility, like a lot of the other industrial facilities in the area, we rely strictly on that medium voltage coming at the very top of the poles. So we don't see some of the brownouts and blackouts that the residential neighborhoods do.
Okay. But still, it would be good to see the JCPL representatives here because there were concerns raised about power outages, power use, and how they are going to manage that from their end when there is because apart from power outages, there will also been some voltage fluctuations when some households had to install power surge protectors in their homes.
Although we tried. I promise you, we had probably 6 conversations with JCP&L leadership since we last met. They will not come to an event like this. There are government representatives within JCP&L. Those folks will have to engage with the township if they want to have that conversation. We tried to get them here. Believe me, I have JCP&L. I hear you. I would love to hear them stand here and tell us what happened as well.
I was probably addressing the board and subpoena actually and to require their presence at the meeting. Thank you.
Just to answer that question, this board does not have subpoena power. This is a planning board. It's a board that's incorporated under the municipal land use law. There's no subpoena power. And just to echo some of the comments from QTS regarding utility companies attending hearings, I've never seen a utility company attend a hearing. I've never seen the New Jersey Turnpike Authority attend a hearing. I've never seen the NJDOT or the NJDEP. They don't attend hearings. So just so the public is aware.
Maybe they should.
Well, that's been taken up with your state legislators, but they do not do that.
Okay, I'm going to take 2 more questions.
We're waiting here for hours.
I'm going to take 20, we'll have another 20 minutes. Another 20 minutes.
Okay, this is a quick question about, pardon?
Name and address.
Oh, Robert Michael Turco, 202 East Ward Street, and I'm both in East Windsor and Hightstown. I'm in both, okay? And I've been here since 1967. I have 5 sons and 13 grandchildren. I'm here for them, okay? There are a myriad of reasons why this project shouldn't go forward yet, but I'm going to ask Mayor Reardon one question. Is the town, are we all going to get to East Windsor and Hightstown to get to vote on this? Oh, we're not going to let you get this important decision.
I'm going to ask the attorney to explain the process.
Where, Mr. Sachs?
Yeah, let me respond.
You live where in East Windsor?
No, I do not live in East Windsor.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to educate you.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to educate you on the municipal.
What are you going to educate? Okay, good.
I'm going to try.
Okay.
First of all, every municipality in New Jersey either has a planning board and a zoning board. Some smaller towns have what's called a combined land use board.
Okay, I understand that.
Well, let me answer your question.
You don't have to, I want to be quick for you.
Well, no,
I understand what you're saying. I asked her a question.
Well,
in this particular important financial decision, an important decision to the town that's going to be done, I want to find out why and who's culpable for this, okay? Without giving us a say in this essential decision. I understand what is usually goes very well.
Not usually.
Okay?
Not usually. The way it works is that every property owner has a right to appear in front of a planning board or a zoning board. If you wanted to put a deck on your house and you were over the setback, you go in front of the zoning board.
Okay.
All right? That's all right. If you own property and it's a permitted use, which by the way, this use is a permitted use.
Okay.
So therefore, he's in front of the planning board. And this board is functioned by the state statutes to deal with site plan approvals. Let me finish. Subdivisions. All right, and bulk variances. All right. That's what we do twice a month. Okay, we meet twice a month. By the way, I think the question earlier was why are we doing this at 5 o'clock? They've been doing it at 5 o'clock here for the last 20 years, most likely. All right. As long as I've been the attorney, it's 5
It's all
o'clock.
good, 5 o'clock. Just go. It's process.
So let me
We all
finish.
want to know what we're going to say.
Let me finish.
Okay.
A land use application does not get voted on by the public. It doesn't get voted on by the governing body.
I understand.
It gets adjudicated by the planning board or zoning board, depending on the nature of
Okay,
the
now,
application.
but if the planning board decides that the decision is so important and affects so many people deeply on so many levels, wouldn't it be wise to hold an election? So culpability, no, you don't want to do it as an attorney because most of the time, but it's not always, attorney, it's not always done that way. I can cite you cases where they voted on things, and you know that, okay? You know that. Town boards have the sense to not be personally and individually culpable for this awful decision you'll make without the town being able to do. We came into a meeting tonight, and I'm assuming you advised them not to give printed sheets, go to Triangle Printing or somebody, and give printed sheets of the biographies of all people making comments here, and all the charts. We couldn't see them. You have many older people, but even my 17-year-old grandson couldn't read the charts, which may work for a little table, but it so insulted this group. This is a process, and you've corrupted that process. And you should know that, okay? And I don't understand why, unless you want to throw the wool over their eyes. I don't get it. This is a very important decision for us. Maybe not you, you don't live here. But I've lived here for over half a century. And I may die any day, okay, but it's my children's property. I have 3.5 acres here, okay? And I intend to find out the bottom of the line why we don't get to vote on this important decision. That our leaders here that we elected to guide us didn't say no. This is such an important decision that we all vote on it, the town. And they're allowed to do that, aren't they, Counselor?
No, they're not.
Oh, they're not allowed? No, you're wrong. Counselor?
Let me finish. If you want to engage me, I'll give you the answer.
Yeah, but you're
right. A land use application is adjudicated for a permitted use in front of the planning board.
That's not what I asked,
That is the state law.
Counselor, that's not what I asked. I asked when a certain situation comes about that affects everybody so deeply. Don't shake your head, sir. They're allowed to do it.
No, you're not.
Council, you're allowed to say that there should be election. Otherwise, you may be personally sued, because that's what you basically said, is somehow what has happened in the past will protect them from getting sued. That they can do this important decision on their own, and they can't. And Mayor, I've respected you and loved you for years. You've been an incredible mayor. Let's hear it for our mayor, for crying out loud. He's been a great mayor. Mayor, you should not make this decision on all your sides. You should not do it. Okay? You should put it up to the people, if it's to be done at all. This is an important one, Counselor. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you.
I probably won't need the mic. I've been called a PA system, so I tend to stay away from those. Robert DeJoya, I am a resident of 21 Pinehurst Drive here in East Windsor. Lived here most of my life. Oh, yes, absolutely. Let me address the people. People are mad. Damn straight. All right, so one of my big concerns is the person who came up with the service dog. We can discuss the, I guess, extreme cases, but we can all agree, I think, in this room, AI is bad tests.
Yes.
It's held up by bad people who use it to do very bad things.
Yes.
What did we hear our friends from the developers say about the tenants? They said they're going to look at credit, they're going to do a credit check, and then they're going to, they don't care if they play Xbox, they don't care what they do. So they made it very clear that they don't give a shit who's coming in and using their infrastructure to potentially do very, very, very bad things. Okay, we can discuss whether or not this is going to be humanity ending, but certainly it is a waste of resources, as so many of us up here have said, because they're basically dumping our water into Elon Musk's Nazi plagiarism machine. So, or potentially doing that. Like, come on now, we're not stupid. A dear friend of mine also pointed out the Edison Electric Institute. Correct me if I'm wrong, Hannah. It was, how you say, lots of folks who want to see to it that power generation is not covered under different EPA regulations. It's a lobbying group. It is a bunch of, like, power CEOs. Are they helping us? No, I don't think they are. Brothers and sisters, come on now. You guys can do better. You know better. Please, for all of us, for our township, for the residents, send these suits out of here. Out of here,
Hello, I'm Amy Lerner, and I live at 2 Sheffield Road, and I've lived in East Windsor. Is this on? I'll speak close. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So I've lived here over 40 years. I've raised my 3 children here. And what I'm not getting right now, forget all the facts. We're supposed to live in a democracy. This is not a democracy. These people were not elected. They were chosen by the government. And they shouldn't have the right to destroy our lives. There are people, this room was filled, and these people came and didn't even show us any dignity. They should have presented to us to try and convince us, because we're not going to put up with this. That's all I wanted to say.
Hi, my name is Patricia Windsor. I live in Twin Rivers. I was at a meeting for another data center a few months ago. Some of you were there.
Yeah.
I agree with you who spoke. I don't want AI. I taught for 25 years in East Windsor, just retired in June, and AI was damaging education. I'm here. I did use it to get some information here. When Blackstone took over QTS 5 years ago, the worth of the company went from 10 billion to over 60 billion. The company that built that. I don't know where I was, maybe working really hard in the classroom, but I didn't even know that that data center went. I never heard of it. I only heard of it when it was going to be expanded. So my question is, the data centers that you own in Piscataway, Jersey City, in New Jersey, right? You own those, right?
Jersey City is the leased property. We don't own.
Does QTS own one in Piscataway?
We do own the building in Piscataway.
So the people's bills went up 10% there, at least 10%. The data center that you own in in Virginia, 267% increase in their electric bills. Because there's a lot of data centers, from what I understand, there's a lot of them there. So it went up even more. My question is, how will my property taxes be offset by the increase in my electric bills?
Now you get paid for the answer.
So how will my property taxes be offset? when my bills go up even more than they have already? That's my question.
You won't get an answer. We'll get an
Jody Eccles-Freeze, I've lived in East Windsor since 1999, raised my 5 children here. This is the 3rd time I'm out protesting these. I hope this is the last. When we look at these data center proposals, we're not seeing progress. It's a chance for big tech companies to get rich while our community, or any community where these centers are built, foot the bill for their utility overusage and the damage done to the environment. You're telling us you use a closed loop system, that the water is filled once and recycled forever. In a laboratory setting, that might be true, but this is real life, not a laboratory. From what I am reading as I have researched these centers being built around the country, I'm seeing information showing that as the chips get smaller and smaller and the AI demands get larger, the heat these machines generate is outstripping closed-loop theory. To keep the servers from melting, a data center has to bleed the lines to remove toxic sludge. This toxic sludge is also known to us as forever chemicals. This bleeding toxic water needs to be evaporated. It evaporates into the sky by millions of gallons. From what I am reading, often data center companies fund their own environmental impact studies. These huge companies pay the fees and say that forever chemicals won't hit our water table, and they are given a green light. But they aren't giving us science. They're giving us a sales pitch. Amazon is paying out $20.5 million because 2 of their Oregon data centers helped contaminate groundwater. Where are the independent studies showing that East Windsor's water table won't be affected? I asked this last time, I did not get an answer. How do we know that our water will not be polluted? How can you say the equipment that you install on day 1 will be there for the life of the building? For example, think how much SEER on air conditioning units has changed in the last 15 to 20 years. Are you saying that you're going to run your company on outdated technology? Our community is being asked to fund the 21st century luxury with the 20th century infrastructure. We are being asked to sacrifice our towns so a rich company can get richer. You want us to trust a $1 trillion industry that tells us with a straight face that they can use our water and return it back to the environment without a single consequence. So when you ask for our water, our electricity, and our compliance, we want to know what our recourse will be when we have polluted water and we're brownouts, and who knows what other repercussions. Why should we let your company get rich while our community suffers? We're also hearing we should accept this center because it will bring jobs to the community, but you have asked for a waiver on parking because you don't expect there to be many in-person employees in your location. So the need for cooling increases, you may be using the water of 50,000 people, but only hiring 10 or 20 or 50 people. You have stated that you don't know because you do not know what companies will choose to use your center and what their needs will be. Last time I asked you why you were coming to New Jersey, the most densely populated state, instead of building the center in your state. You say you don't have high water needs and you won't affect our electric supply, so why aren't you building in your own backyard? I never received an answer to that. I know that clean water for our children is worth more than 1 billion AI-generated images. We choose our children in our community, not an AI center. And also, just the people of East Windsor would really like to have a lawyer who lives in our town and is...
Any more questions?
My name is Mike Gelt. I live on Jefferson Road in East Windsor. It's a Twin Rivers development. I've read a lot of articles, a number of articles, I should say, about data centers. Not one has said anything about reducing electric rates or water usage. Not one. I also like to I don't want to repeat myself, other people have said, but I want to remind you, last time you tried to put a data center on Tabasco Road, we turned it down. What makes you think we're going to want one now? We do not want it. That is the end of the story, and you should not be voting for it.
All right, we're going to wrap up the open session. All right, one more. One more, this is it.
Hi, my name is Judy Delgado. I live in Tune Rivers Development. My name is Judy Delgado. I live in Tune Rivers Drive Road. First of all, it's not right. I am going to be the last person to talk because we've been here for hours. So please, we respect you guys waiting, or we expect us to wait for everybody say our thoughts. First of all, the only thing positive, maybe positive that hurt is like the taxes we reduced. But at what cost? So our property value goes down, our life quality comes down, our kids are going to be more polluted, are going to be more infected with all the agents, all the contamination the plants produce. So I living in this town. I love this town. This town is the beautiful town because there is no much violence, there is no more pollution. We still live in kind of peace place. Why, at what cost, we will transform all the peace we're living now for all these, I would say, I don't want to say bad words, for all this shit. And I believe everybody, I didn't hear about this new construction that you guys are planning to do. Just 2 weeks ago, I heard it. And I am a Spanish one. And I don't know if we do more, if everybody knows what you are planning to do in our town, I promise to you that everybody will come into the township, will come into any places, and we are going to protest about this because we don't want bad things in our pretty town.
I was going to. You go first, though.
Okay, sure.
Hello, my name is Justina Kulik. I live in 148 Broad Street, Hightstown, New Jersey. I've lived in Hightstown, East Windsor area my entire life. My family came here also in 1967, I believe. And I have a bunch of family here. We've lived here our whole lives. We absolutely love this town. I love everyone here, truly. And I guess I have a couple questions. So for these lovely people here, just if you want to, can you raise your hand? Who actually lives in Hightstown or East Windsor on the planning board? Okay, that's interesting. That's really interesting because I just think you weren't, so I was just wondering. And then can I also get a raise of hands who cares or knows about the effects of climate change? Does anyone, you guys believe in that? Oh, we have one. Oh, that's interesting. That's very telling. So that was going to be my question towards these folks over here. So we're already talking about the resources and how the data centers are going to take all of our resources like water and it's going to be polluted and we're going to struggle in those ways already because of climate change, and now we're going to have this whole like man-made, even to accelerate the problem. It's super exciting what they want for us. So I'm just really wondering, what's your plan? Have you looked at climate data? Do you have a backup plan for when we don't have clean water in our towns? Like, have we thought about that? Have you guys seen that from the towns that already have these data centers? They turn on their faucet and there's just sludge coming out, or they don't have water. We've already talked about how there's droughts. Climate change shows the climate's gonna be worse, right? We're gonna have less water, less resources, And there are going to be more storms. We're talking about, oh, we don't know when the next blackout or storm's going to be. If you looked at climate data, those things are going to increase. Right. Right. So I was wondering, because it's interesting that our planning board, I think there was one shy hand that believed in climate change. Shout out. Skip, was it you? All right, thanks so much for that. So hopefully Skip can convince his friends to believe in that. And then we'll be in a good spot, because then we can have clean water for our kids and the people that live in this town, and all we're asking for is our basic needs. I'm not here to talk about finance and the trajectories of whatever. I don't care, truly. I truly care about living in a community with access to water and electricity and just the things that we all need and deserve.
Good evening, Board. Charlie Prattville, I'm the Central Jersey organizer with Food and Water Watch. We're a national environmental organization with our New Jersey office in downtown New Brunswick. I'm not an East Windsor resident, but my partner is from here, and I love it here. I have many friends through her family, have gotten to know many people here, and also through this movement, gotten to know many people here. It is a truly great community, and I am proud to be here today. I'll also start by thanking Ms. Arielli and Mr. Brand and his team for helping me get the application and some of the documents to help me testify today on behalf of our 72,000 members around the state. I did want to ask, I wanted to be polite and let township residents go first, so I didn't get the chance to ask questions of the planner. When will I be able to do that?
You can do it right now.
Okay, is he here? The planner testified for the applicant.
No, Mr. Sturgis.
Right, so I believe Mr. Sachs said he was never going to deny anybody the opportunity to question one of the witnesses. I'd like to question the planner.
But Charlie, the rest of our consultants are here. I'm sure they can field most of your questions.
But Mr. Sachs said that no person would be denied the opportunity to question a witness, and that was said on the record in regards to that witness. So I want to know, when can I question the planner?
First of all, Mr. Chen, I instructed you that your planner should not leave.
Correct. I instructed him.
All right. This is okay.
But the planner left.
And he left, so how much
You certainly have an
respect do we get?
opportunity to question the planner.
Okay, and when will he be here?
Well, I guess we'll make that determination after you make your public statements.
So, to be clear, there'll be another meeting when the planner will be here. Wow.
With everyone?
And will you announce the meeting
With everyone with the planner?
and not just make it word of mouth like you do this one?
Our grapevine worked.
Why don't you got some comments, why don't you?
I do, and I guess I'll start with the letter that I presented you all with regarding some procedural objections to moving ahead tonight. I did share it with Mr. Sachs. I was hoping to be recognized before we went through a whole evening here, but maybe the gentleman sitting next to me could answer. Was notice provided of this hearing, and specifically the new location of this hearing, to residents or property owners who live within 200 feet?
No.
No.
Well, you can respond and then I'll respond.
No, I was not instructed to do the notice, but I believe it was in the newspaper and also on the.
At the March, it was the March 9th meeting. Okay, we did announce that the next meeting would be carried, that that application was being carried to the April 27th meeting, which is tonight. And I also indicated without further notice. In the interim, because of a number of complaints regarding the use of the normal room where we have our planning board meeting, we decided to accommodate a larger crowd at this facility. That was published on the township website. There was a notice placed on the at the municipal building this evening. Let me finish, because there are some. I may not live in East Windsor, but I know a little bit about land use. All right? Section 12 of the municipal land use law requires a board to accept jurisdiction after reviewing the notice. That was done earlier, probably back at the end of 2025, when it was first scheduled. And at that time, at subsequent meetings, it was carried, and it was ultimately carried to the March 9th meeting. So as long as the initial notice was satisfactory, which I determined and which this board determined, then this matter proceeded forward. Sometimes there are exigent circumstances which require that the venue of a meeting be changed. This was one of those circumstances. And that's why that notice was published on the municipal website and was also put on the municipal building this evening, so that anyone who knew that there was going to be a meeting at 5 o'clock at the municipal building would then know to come here. And obviously, most people did come here. In fact, everybody came here. I don't think anybody is still waiting at the municipal building for this meeting to commence. So, to answer your question, notice was proper. Compliance has occurred under Section 12 of the municipal land use law, and this matter can proceed forward, just like it did this evening, with the testimony that was provided by the applicant and by the public portion.
Counselor, we did not have the right, he did not have the right to question the planner. This has to be rescheduled so we
But I haven't gotten to that point yet, so I'm going to let Mr. Cradaville determine or make comments regarding whatever he wants to comment about.
Thank you. And yeah, respectfully disagree that proper notice was given. The announcement at the March 9th meeting specifically indicated the location would be 16 Land Boulevard. The board has a habit of carrying applications over across many meetings, and that is allowed, but specifically there was no February 23rd meeting, which is another issue. So there was no announcement made to carry the application, and the board should have...
Let me respond to that. February 23rd was the second blizzard that we had. State of emergency was declared in the state of New Jersey. No public meetings occurred that night. So under executive orders issued by the governor of the state of New Jersey at that time, Mikey Sherrill, since she took office in January, that rule is suspended. So therefore, if there was no meeting, automatically carries to the March 9th meeting.
And where do you get that from?
It's
automatically carries. I don't see that in 40:55 T12.
When there's a state of emergency and you cannot have a meeting, it gets carried. And again, I believe on our website, there was a notification posted that any matters that were scheduled for February 23rd were carried to the next scheduled planning board.
You know, respectfully, we've heard about executive orders and websites and, you know, a notice posted on the door, but none of those things are what the law actually requires in terms of notice. It's very clear. It must be 10 days prior to the meeting, and it's also supposed to be published in the newspaper. And just for the record, the only publication in the newspaper was done in November. Is that correct?
I don't know if my file for me, but I know that we did the affidavit and noticed well in advance of the meeting that we had. And I'll just add one more thing, and I know the path going down. I object to this stalling mechanism. You're obviously not prejudiced here because you're actually here at the meeting voicing your opinion. So I'll stand by that statement.
Just pointing out what I believe to be violations of state law here. So I'll move on to questions for Mr. Robert LaCosta. Okay, so we heard at the first meeting, quote, "We filled the building one time. It's about the equivalent of 1.5 to 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools." Today, we're hearing 1 Olympic-sized swimming pool. Which is it? Did it shrink? Why did you give 2 different numbers?
It's approximately 1 Olympic-sized swimming pool.
Okay. You mentioned 2 different types of pooling. One you described as, quote, very environmentally unfriendly. To be clear, that very environmentally unfriendly system is in use today in East Windsor at your facility. Is that correct? Yeah.
Evaporative systems are in use in commercial buildings all over the state and all over the country.
That does not answer my question, sir. Is it in use in your facility in this municipality today?
We still have an evaporative cooling system that is in use.
Okay. I found it to be curious that that did not come up until the witness testimony today. I had looked at the water bills and I was concerned that the rhetoric was not matching up. And even tonight we heard you said, quote, the only system QTS uses nationwide is a closed loop system. That's not true, right? You use other systems.
What I said,
in
Charlie,
East Windsor. That's a direct one.
what I said, Charlie, is all we install now is a closed loop system. We have legacy facilities that do not have the current technology. As those systems reach end of life, we are replacing them with closed loop systems.
Well, I encourage the board to review the transcript where you will see not only that quote, but later on in the hearing tonight, the quote, the only system QTS uses nationwide. That was misleading to say, and I think it's not, I think it suggests concerns about the testimony given in other respects. I'll move on. We heard about the water bills. You mentioned there was a blip during the construction at your current facility. When was that?
Second half of 2024 and most of 2025.
Okay. So I just want to introduce into evidence the water bills from 159 Princeton Heights Town Road. This is the bill that was due April 11th, 2024, if I may.
Let's mark that as 01, objector number 1.
Okay. And perhaps you could share it with them if necessary, but the usage is listed as 1.285000. So that's, you understand that to be 1.285 million gallons during this water.
If that's what the bill reflects.
Okay, and that would make sense to you. That'd be a good, understandable amount for that facility to use in a quarter of 2024.
I don't have the information provided by the MOU with me, so I can't fact check that.
Fair enough. I'll now introduce the bill due date 10/15/2025. And so you can confirm for me that the usage on this bill is 5126000. So that's 5.126 million.
All right, it's time to close this up.
So it increased maybe 4 times what it was a few bills ago. Can you explain how construction caused a 4-fold increase in the water usage?
So we had upwards of 1,000 construction workers working on site. We did a massive hardening of the building. There is a sorry guys, I'm not used to holding the mic this close. There was a tremendous amount of concrete work that was performed. There was a tremendous amount of hydro excavation that was performed. Unfortunately, when you go onto a brownfield campus somewhere that has existing structures, you can't excavate with backhoes and bulldozers. You have to hydro excavate. So for every cubic yard of soil you remove, you're using gallons and gallons of water to remove that cubic yard of soil. About 90% of our excavation was done using that manner.
So you attribute the vast increase due to the hydro excavation that was done on site?
Just the construction process, but that's a major factor.
Okay. I will just introduce one more bill because it's the most recent one I have, dated due date 1/16/2026.
We'll mark that bill as 02.
That would be great.
I'm sorry, 03.
And so, just for the record, usage is now 4689000, so only slightly lower for this first bill due in 2026. You've probably gotten a bill since then. Can you tell me, has it gone down or is it continuing to be multiple millions of gallons?
Do you want me to answer that?
Perfect.
I got a spreadsheet right here. It was 3,335,000
Okay.
gallons for 2 years. And that's about roughly their average. It's a little bit above their average use. But again, like I said earlier, I have the spreadsheet here also from McGraw Hill. And at that exact date in 2018, it was 500,000 gallons less than what McGraw Hill used when they were here. So we have noticed our water usage go down. And I'll be glad to give you the spreadsheet right there. You can read it.
Thank you, Mr. Brett. I truly appreciate it. And yeah, so I just want to understand if 3 million gallons is normal for this facility, what are we expected to believe is going to be normal for the new facility? What we noticed is what can we expect?
We're still in the process of hardening the building on the inside. We still have about 175 construction workers. But we're still in the process of hardening the existing building. We have between 175 and 250 construction workers on site daily. Those construction activities are still centered around excavation, steel and concrete installation. So yeah, there's a spike in water usage because we have a tremendous amount of work going on that requires a significant amount of water.
Okay, so when you said there was a blip, past tense, during the construction, are we past the blip, are we past the construction, or the construction continues?
We are finalizing the construction on this building and will be done in probably a quarter from now.
Okay, so still 3 months out. In terms of the cooling system, you mentioned you plan to upgrade it at end of life to a closed loop. Would that be something that your company would consider doing as a condition of approval before?
I'm not in a position to make that decision. That would be a much higher conversation with our leadership.
Okay.
Charlie, ask him how long the life expectancy is. Are we talking 20 years?
I think he said he's not sure when it.
Well, life expectancy of new equipment is 20 years. All of the equipment that we purchase is a 20-year life expectancy. That's when we plan to renovate and retrofit buildings.
How old is it?
I don't know when that plant was installed.
Listen, Mr. Crowderville has the floor now, so we can't take questions from the audience, so go ahead, Mr. Crowderville.
Thank you kindly. And yeah, I'm about to wrap up. I did just want to say that, I share the community's concerns about this proposal, and that's why Food and Water Watch is calling for a nationwide moratorium on all large-scale AI data centers. And it's something where I will never forget that meeting at the East Windsor Municipal Building of the Township Council, where I first saw people coming out in force to oppose these things. And I think it's so critically important that our leaders, elected and appointed, listen to the communities they serve. I am proud to do the work I do, defending clean water, healthy food, and a livable climate future. And these data centers are a threat to all of it. So that's why I'm on this tonight. I truly hope that you will schedule another hearing so that the planner can present himself to us for questioning as we were promised. And I hope that I won't be the last speaker, because I know there's a lot of other people in this room who haven't had their voices heard yet, and I hope that they will come here and speak up just like all of us did tonight. Thank you.
So, Tony does have the right to cross-examine or examine the planner who's not here tonight. So we will carry this meeting so he can do that.
This isn't so much a question as a quick comment on the...
We're trying to reschedule right now.
So,
Food and water, watch out right.
What did you choose? We're happy to walk.
Cell phone as well.
Do you know all the reports and things, are they online available?
Like these documents here.
Just whatever, all the background, groundwater?
I have them, I can share them.
We will be carrying the meeting for May 4th. May 4th. Here.
Yeah, so, all right, so let me just make an announcement. So the next scheduled meeting on this application will be next Monday, May 4th at 5 p.m. And it'll be in this room. Okay?
audio visual thing? Right. Yeah, turn on the projector. You tell me how to do it, I will.
Okay, we are adjourned.